Committee of the whole meeting for June 18, 2024. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil pour le 18 juin. For the opening, I would like to pass the floor to Councillor St. Louis for the land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Je souhaite prendre un moment pour souligner l'importance du territoire sur lequel nous sommes rassemblés. The municipality of West Nipissing respectfully acknowledge that we are located on the homeland of the Anishinaabe people on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Dokis First Nation, covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historical connection to the land and value their significant contribution in shaping and strengthening our communities. Ce faisant, nous réaffirmons notre engagement et notre responsabilité envers la réconciliation et l'amélioration de notre compréhension des peuples autochtones locaux et de leur culture.
Merci. Before we get into the rest of the meeting, I would like to just take a moment to welcome Julie Lavictoire, our new Manager of Community and Social Development, here for her very first council meeting with us. So welcome. Try to take it easy on you this evening. Next, I would like to take any declarations of pecuniary interest. Councillor Ferrin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On item 622.
Okay. And the paperwork has been filed with our clerk and will appear in the registry. Thank you very much. Next, we have an addendum this evening. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that the addendum for the Council and Committee of the whole meeting held on June the 18th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Questions or comments on the addendum? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we are going to move to adopt the agenda, but I would like to note that on item 6.2.4, we have received a communication from the solicitors for the proponent asking that this matter be held for a future meeting. So I would take a mover and a seconder to, do you have that? Okay, so we'd like to remove that from the agenda for this evening. So, Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Council and Committee of the whole meeting held on June the 18th, 2024 be adopted as amended.
Okay, questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Next up for this evening, we have delegations and petitions. 4.1, we have a petition for the request of the installation of streetlights at the intersection of Nipissing Canal. The information is contained in your package. As per our procedural bylaw, the petition will be received by council this evening and will come back for discussion at our next council meeting. Thank you. Okay, next, we'll move on to Committee of the Whole. And to start this evening at 5.1, we have our Economic Development Committee. I will pass that to our chair, Councillor Ferrin.
Madam Mayor, I wasn't aware that I was the chair.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations. My recommendation would be to introduce the item and then pass it to our through our CAO to staff for some background information, and we'll go from there.
Pass it to our CAO.
I don't have any clue. No, just joking. So I'll pass it. So the mayor and we have received some information of a potential funding or pilot program to attract the Francophone immigration to West Nipissing. And this is a federal program. And because it's on today's agenda, even though it'll be discussed as well tomorrow on economic development. And the reason it's on tonight's agenda, which is a little procedural variation, is because we won't have a meeting for application, which is July 12th. With that, I'd like to pass it to our Director of Economic Development Community Services so that he can elaborate on the criteria of the program and where we're at with it what we would be suggesting. Mr. Portman.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. The existing rule in Northern Immigration Program, that program has been in existence for some time. And now the Government of Canada decided to create 2 pilot projects based on this initiative. One being the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Project, and the other component being the Francophone Community Immigration Program Pilot Project. These programs are basically created in order to attract skilled workers, to help our local communities and economies grow. The Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, as I mentioned, has been in existence. The North Bay Chamber of Commerce has been managing that program. And speaking to the general manager at the chamber, we have had some uptake within our community, where 14 of our businesses have been able to get workers through this program. A total of 20 recommendations have been made. So 20 workers would have been working in our local establishments here. The North Bay Chamber of Commerce and Council will see through the addendum that there's a letter of support that is being requested from the chamber, because they are applying through the Rural Community Pilot Project, and on a regional basis. So we'd still be part of their catchment area. From the Francophone Immigration Pilot or the rural component, as a municipality, as an entity on our own, we cannot apply. We're not eligible to apply. Establishments or not-for-profits such as Chamber of Commerce, Community Futures, which ours in our community is West Nipissing, Sudbury East Economic Partners, are eligible to apply. Independent or not-for-profit economic development organizations, community organizations with an independent board of directors, but municipalities as a standalone entity cannot apply for these programs. So knowing that the chamber is looking at support from council for the rural component, there's still the Francophone component that could be looked at for our community. Obviously, we meet the threshold and the criteria for that program. What we would recommend, and it's in short order, application deadlines are coming very soon, July 2nd. The program was announced on May 21st. So like most programs, we have to act fairly quickly. What we'd recommend is that staff touch base with local organizations that are eligible to apply, such as our economic partners, and to see if there's a willingness to submit an application that would benefit our employers here in town. So if council wishes to provide that direction to us, we'll move forward that way, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Poulin, any questions?
I'll just add something. Again, ideally, we would have had this discussion at Economic Development Advisory Committee prior to bringing it to council, but with the short deadline and not having our economic development meeting until tomorrow, I thought it was best. There wasn't really a lot of information available online without actually creating a profile. So it was hard to see the information that Mr. Poulin just shared about community organizations. But from the perspective of our Economic Development Advisory Committee, there have been several discussions in regards to labor shortages within the community, and then specifically Francophone shortages within service industry, within healthcare, and within social services, specifically where you have very kind of people-centric jobs, and there's obviously a shortage, at the hospital for community PSWs and all kinds of things like that. So it is a priority that has been identified by our Economic Development Advisory Committee. So I just wanted to kind of add that context to the request. And then on another level, I've spoken with other municipalities who have the same challenges in attracting Francophone immigrants. And we've all been saying, it'd be really great if either federal or provincial or both governments would develop programs that actually help to get French-speaking immigrants into the communities that need French-speaking workers. So I'd just like to say, it's encouraging to see the federal government coming up with these types of programs and recognizing the needs of our community and other communities like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrer. Pour appliquer pour des grants comme ça, I guess ça prend des critères. Un des critères, ce serait-tu, faudrait-tu montrer qu'on a le logement pour recevoir du monde comme ça?
Mr. Chair, ça fait partie du critère, certainement. Il faut aussi être capable de démontrer comme communauté qu'on est capable d'offrir les services aux immigrants qui s'en viennent travailler dans notre communauté. Puis le logement, ça fait partie de ça. Alors, les critères détaillés sur un pourcentage de logements qui serait disponible à la communauté, c'est pas spécifique dans la documentation, mais certainement, oui, ça fait partie de le critère comme communauté. Ils en choisissent 15 à travers du Canada pour ces projets pilotes-là, mais ça fait toute partie de la composante, certainement. Faut être capable d'offrir des services en français, faut être capable de loger les gens qui rentrent dans nos communautés. Alors, c'est quelque chose qu'on va regarder plus étroitement pour déterminer s'il y a façon de faire un partenariat avec un organisme dans notre communauté qui est prêt à déposer une application sur le programme.
On a ça pour le faire, le montant de logement available comme c'est là. Y a-t-il une place qu'on peut checker ça?
On a certainement de l'information par rapport à l'étude qu'on a entrepris. On a de l'information, ça change de jour à jour, de mois à mois, mais entre nos statistiques, puis qu'est-ce qu'on peut trouver au point de vue des agences comme DSAB, ces choses-là, on a un bon aperçu de qu'est-ce qu'il y a disponible dans notre communauté.
OK, merci.
Merci. Any other questions or comments? So Rivard, was that a raised hand?
No, no.
So I think the action item is if council endorses at least our reach out to try our best with a very short goal, given the criteria to reach out to see if there is an appetite. We will endeavor through our economic development to try and bring this forward. So as Mr. Poulet indicated, we are not the applicant, and so all we can do really is advocate, work with an agency and assist them with our resources. So if Mr. Chair, if council wishes us to reach out to Sudbury East, West Nipissing Common Partners, we certainly will do that under the direction of this body.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barbeau. I think that's the only item, and I look forward to my first meeting of the committee tomorrow, where I'm sure I'll be informed that I'm the chair.
No, we actually have a chair for the committee. You want to take just a quick poll of hands that you would like to take a quick poll of council that they're in favor of staff reaching out just before we close that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good job on your first go around, Jessica. 5.2, we have two items under our Public Works Committee. I will pass that to our Chair, Councilor Bonian.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First item is urban side drainage. So I think everybody had a chance to read through the information that was shared by Ms. Henning. So I'll pass it on to you, Ms. Henning, for a quick resume of what's happening with our drainage systems in West Nipissing.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I have a little presentation that I want to give for you guys. It's in your package, but there's a video presentation that I think will explain things a little bit better. So, past practice in West Nipissing years ago, I think this has not been practiced for some time, and something that we have corrected with our current entrance bylaw. But in the past, if you had a ditch in your front yard and you wanted that filled, the town didn't have any issue with ditches being filled, is my understanding. So people filled their ditches and they weren't always filled correctly. So rather than putting in proper subdrain and catch basins, either just a culvert was laid in the ground and it was filled, or it was just filled. And as a result of this, when you drive through at West Nipissing, you'll see a lot of areas where the road is degrading because it doesn't have proper drainage. So I'm just gonna, if we can do a screen share, I'll show you guys a little presentation that explains why roads need drainage, because I want to make sure that everyone's making an informed decision as we go forward about how we're going to correct this. So that's what I'm going to want your input in tonight. So I have the, okay. It doesn't show me.
Excuse me.
Is this share? Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, the importance of roadside drainage. I'm hoping this little video clip will work for you. This is actually taken from the City of Kingston and their website, and it just gives a little how potholes happen in roads. Test run early, so
Yeah.
hopefully the internet is going to let us do this. Well, we're waiting for it to load. So I'm going to explain to you about why roads need proper drainage and different options on how we can do this. So what I'm going to be looking for from council tonight is direction in going forward. We're not going to go and correct this problem all at once. That would be extremely costly. But as we repave roads in the municipality, we want to correct this. We don't want to put new pavement down and then have it falling apart in 5 years. We want our asphalt to be lasting us years. So I'm going to present you with the two different options that we have to correct this, and then I will let you make a decision about how we're going to do that. But I guess this is not going to load for us. Oh, we have volume. Oh, wait.
Raise potholes, but how exactly?
Wait, it's not. You guys can.
A potholes journey begins here with asphalt and a road base. Moisture seeps into little cracks in the asphalt and starts to cool on the road base. As temperatures
It's not,
I could
can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
added moisture in the spring further weakens the asphalt, which can now give them weight of vehicles. This continuous cycle creates cracks and potholes in roads across the city. A higher volume of vehicles and a greater number of freeze and thaw cycles means more potholes.
Okay.
Now it's going to play all the time.
Why is it this way? I'm sure I'm muted. I know I did that. Okay. I don't know what's going on. Sorry about this. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. So, slide for you. So here are the options for correcting potholes. So water gets on the road. You saw the freeze-thaw cycle, and we get potholes. And it's not just water sitting on the surface of the road that seeps in. We get water trapped in the entire subbase of the road. And this is why you have ditches. It's not just to drain that surface, but to drain the subgrade of the road as well. So we have two options here. So the first option is there's no ditches, there is a asphalt swale, and there is a subdrain, and there would be catch basins. So you would need a few catch basins on the road in different locations. So water would drain to the catch basins and into the subdrain, and that subdrain would drain the road. Now this is different than just when you put a culvert in a ditch and fill it in, because the subdrain is actually perforated. So it's perforated and then it's wrapped in a geotextile, so the water can go directly into that subdrain from the road base, not just the surface water the road is getting in there. The entire subbase of the road is draining when you have something like this. So when we move forward with new developments, we're encouraging this type of cross-section for our new roads, or the following, which is an open ditch. So same thing, you see this in a lot of areas where the drainage goes into the ditch. We have culverts at entranceways that allows the water to convey through and the water runs down the ditch. Pretty straightforward. You see us out ditching in various areas throughout West Nipissing, and I think that you are all have at least been made aware how important ditching or proper drainage on roads is. Now, I think the big question is, what does this cost to do? Or first, here's a road. This is, I believe, Riverfront Drive, and this section here has ditches. You can see this is during a rainstorm. There's no water, the asphalt looks good, everything's drained off and is in the ditch. And then this is a little bit further down that road where people have filled in their ditches, and you can see the water is sitting on the road. The asphalt is badly degraded. And this is what we're trying to avoid, this situation right here where ditch has been improperly filled. So whether we go with subdrain or open ditch, these are the options I'm presenting to you. I'm not suggesting in any way that we leave that scenario where we've had these ditches filled in and we're just going to leave them like that. That shouldn't be our practice going forward, because we're going to see, like in that picture I just showed you, the asphalt looking like that. So if we were to put subdrain, for budgetary purposes, I've just done an estimate. So we're assuming we've got a 200-meter section of road. We would probably need approximately 3 catch basins on that section. We would need subdrain and catch basins, and that would cost you about $43,000. So this is to do kind of about a block worth of subdrain. And the other option would be to do open cut ditches. You'd have the cost of culverts under the driveways. And ditching is obviously much cheaper than subdrain because you're just digging it out, and the total cost for that would be $24,000. Now, that said, there's a pretty big aesthetic difference in this. I'm sure that you guys can all see that. If you were a person that had filled in your ditch, 20 years ago, and now we're going to come through and start telling you, sorry, now you have to have a ditch on your front lawn, people might not be favorable to that option. So there is, potentially some benefit there in going with subdrain, but I'm ultimately going to leave that to council to decide how we want to move forward with this. Any questions?
So if I
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mrs. Edding, is there there's a significant difference in price. Does one work significantly better than the other, or do they both accomplish exactly the same thing? And can you also give me an idea, what is that cost in percentage terms for the same section, 200 meters, of the total cost of the asphalt? I mean, is it a large part of the cost, or is it minor? I'm sorry, because I have no idea how much it costs asphalt to road.
So in percentage wise, I would say it's probably between 10 and 25% of the cost.
Depending on which option.
Depending on, well, not just which option, but there's variables, how long the road is, like how many entranceways there are, right? If you have a lot of entranceways, you need more culverts and that sort of thing. So I would put it in that range. And in terms of which one is better for drainage, they both work. With a subdrain system, I mean, in the future, you will potentially you're gonna have maintenance with it, which is a little more costly than a ditch where you can just go out and, redig that ditch. So there is, some long-term expense of a subdrain, but they do work, I would say, as well. We do have them in the municipality. We have them on, like, a lot of our new construction has this type of system. So it does work. And I would say it's a comparable option to an open ditch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Conseil Pagan. Any other questions? Conseil Pagan?
Look, Mr. Gagné, I think this should be done on a case-by-case basis because not every street is the same. If you got a sidewalk, you can't start doing open ditch because there's not enough room. Or if there's no sidewalk and you're planning on putting a sidewalk maybe down the road, then it's got to be a sub drain. A sub drain, well constructed, I think will last way longer than a culvert on a driveway. I think the life would be longer than the culvert. And there's also the aesthetic part of it. But like we've seen when you did, I think it's what, the John Street, close to Villard Park? Okay, you put in a sidewalk, you put in the drains. It looks good. I think that's the way to go, but not all places are like that. If you're in the outskirts and all this, and there's already ditches, unless you have to do a 8-foot ditch, then maybe no. But if you just have to do a little ditch, do a little swale to get the water out, like I say, I think it would be up to you guys to decide on site which is best.
Well, and sorry, to your point, I agree there will be some cases where, one might be better than the other. And I think that, yes, Public Works could make that decision based on what is there. However, what we're looking for more direction in is these neighborhoods where the ditches have been completely filled, there is no drainage, and we need to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to dig in these areas? Are we going to dig ditches, or are we going to put subdrain in when we go correct this? So yes, there will be some cases where, there might be some ditches and subdrain, and there's, we will see that kind of mix up. And yeah, we will obviously use our best judgment in going forward with that. But do you want us going forward and opening ditches everywhere, or?
To you, Mr. Chair, I think the reason that the directors brought this forward is because of the impact to the resident. And so residents, either by permission or not by permission, have decided to make, people don't like ditches in front of their place and they got to mow them or whatever. And they, back when we weren't as sophisticated, they were doing that. But right now, the reason we're bringing this forward is there's going to be an impact on the public or on the homeowner. And so we'd like the elected officials to give us at least a template policy as to where we would be going. Obviously, the subdrain would be something that's a lot more palatable to the person who has this beautiful property. But when we take that out, whether they were the person who put it in and we just dig a ditch, we're going to get some feedback, or you're going to get some feedback as well. And so that's why Ms. Henning is bringing this forward, is to ensure that that you have a decision as a general policy, exceptions aside, as to how we are going to be approaching these situations.
Conseil Saint-Louis.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So touching on what Mr. Barbeau just said, I got several questions. First off, the individuals that have already put culvert and made their lawn nice, and we go and we dig a ditch instead, one, are they going to be compensated for the loss of the money that the ditches that they sawed and everything, whatever that they did? Two, are those owners going to be given the opportunity to put subdrain as opposed to just the good old culvert? And, because you said you're looking at 43,000 for 200 yards or meters, or whatever it is. So if you have a home of 100 feet 100 feet, and if you want to do your whole home with the subdrain, do it properly, as you're saying, is that going to be an option also? Or are we just, or are you looking from us to make a decision of ditch or subdrain?
I'm looking for just a ditch subdrain decision because our current entrance bylaw has provisions in it where owners aren't allowed to fill in their ditches and put in subdrain. We don't allow that. So we don't want to change that. We're only looking at areas where we have filled in ditches and we need to correct that.
On your financial question, reminding you that what they have done is on our property, or is on municipal road allowance property. And so it would not be the intention of the municipality to compensate any resident for having any of their infrastructure or what they've done at their own expense on our property. So the issue then is how do we mitigate that?
Wait, go see Cindy.
Sorry, so to follow up, if people were provided permission in the past and were given permission by the municipality to go ahead and fill their ditch.
Right. Where they got that, I've been here a long time, where they got that permission is one thing. Typically what I've seen, and not to be as cynical as I am, but oftentimes this was done without permission. And so they would have to show proof of where permission was granted. I don't remember that we were doing that. It was just a practice that was happening. Now, on a case-by-case basis, I believe it would become a civil matter, but certainly a recommendation my recommendation would not be to enter into a compensation scheme. I would have, if there's a homeowner, and I'm not welcoming litigation, but I certainly wouldn't willingly be compensated.
Thank you.
We'll see TC.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So that part of the property belongs to the municipality. When has that bylaw been effective from? I didn't go back to see, like, is it 2013 or earlier?
The entrance bylaw?
Yeah,
2017.
2017.
2017.
But we updated it.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, like like,
That's not to say it was permitted prior,
entrance.
that's not to say it was permitted prior to
No,
Council
no.
Casey.
no,
That's just when we formalized an entrance bylaw.
yeah, I'm just trying to see when that entrance bylaw, not to fill the ditch, was in the bylaw technically. Was it at the onset of the bylaw? The filling of the
I don't understand
ditch?
the question.
Like when the bylaw was established or created, was the filling of the ditch mentioned at the beginning of the, like within the initial bylaw being established?
I'm not sure on the original entrance bylaw, how that,
And so there's a
There was no
formalization
bylaw
that
prior
was taking
to?
place with refinement, but if your point is prior to 2017, it was allowed by the municipality or condoned by the municipality, it never really was. It's always been bad practice to have somebody put some 6-inch PVC pipe thinking that that would handle things into a 2-foot. It was never condoned in a engineering or in a public works logical way. And so the exception of where it may have been granted, I could tell you that I cannot think of an occasion where it was condoned. So it would, and I don't want to litigate publicly here, but the recommendation I would be making to council would be not to compensate or provide willing compensation. The policy before you is ditching, which will create a backlash from somebody, or the paved swales as indicated.
You okay, Conseiller TC?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Conseiller Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess we're looking for policy creation or a bylaw creation, right? So my suggestion, just throwing it out there, would be something in an urban area like the photo that we saw. I believe that's Riverfront Street. Like an area like that, to me, it would be fairly simple. We would go forward with the subdrains. Those are some, homes in a busy area as well. And then I'd also like to see in urban areas, like I'm thinking of Nipissing Street past 3rd, it turns into ditches. An area like that where it's heavily trafficked with some speed as well, I would think an area like that should have subdrains. Because then, if you're walking on the street or biking, and there's 2 cars coming, it gives you the option to pull off the road. Meanwhile, when there's ditches, you're kind of either you jump in the ditch or it just adds a safety factor there. But then some areas like that Riverfront Drive, I would suggest a sub drain, but maybe in the more rural, or if it's done right from the start on not a heavily trafficked area, go with the ditches, which give you the drainage as well. But just some sort of guideline. Then if someone, case by case, if they want a new subdivision and it falls within the urban area, but they decide to go with the ditches, maybe then that comes to council as well at that point.
This is definitely more of an urban issue than a rural issue.
Yeah.
We don't really see this in the rural areas. So this is, yeah, and it's where we're paving is where we are most concerned with this, so.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, sorry, I have a couple of questions here. So this policy would apply only as we undertake resurfacing of asphalt roads that are already asphalt roads.
Correct.
Okay. And do we have any idea, and I know it's a bit out there, but how many households we think might be affected within the municipality that have these not properly filled in ditches that are causing problems? Like what's the overall impact across?
I don't have any specific numbers for you, but I would say it's quite high. When you drive around, you see quite a few areas where this has been done and there's improper ditching.
Okay. And so to go with, if we were to develop a policy whereas we resurface with asphalt in our different urban areas, that it was automatically a sub-drain installation that would increase the cost of the project, you said anywhere between 10 and 25% from just resurfacing?
Well, not from just well, yeah, I guess if we did
Okay.
no drainage whatsoever, right?
Okay.
Because there would
You
be
still
an
have-
additional cost for ditching as well. Like either way, you're going to have a cost if you're going to improve drainage.
And what's the long-term costs of inaction? Because we see, so I'm assuming that we end up having to resurface the roads more often, and then that is a higher cost
Yes.
over the long term.
Yeah, like for example, in Riverfront Drive, I don't know the specific year of when that was done, but that it hasn't been there that long. And as soon as those ditches were filled, we started to see degradation of the asphalt. So I would say within 5 years, you're going to start to lose your asphalt.
And when you spoke about the sub-drain and open cut ditches, you said that in new subdivisions, a sub-drain system is encouraged. Is a sub-drain system generally a requirement
Sorry,
on?
no, in new subdivisions, we encourage either one of these.
Okay.
We are fine if a new subdivision has these open ditches, then we are okay with that, and we are okay with sub-drain. However, we will approve both.
And is Public Works being more proactive now as far as monitoring for illegal filling of ditches? So if a development goes in and it is a ditch system, and it's identified that somebody has illegally covered in that ditch, that's being addressed
Yes.
with the property
Yeah, we
owners
are
at
being-
that time, so that we don't get new problems being created.
Yeah, we are being proactive with this.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other questions? We'll see if I got.
Thank you. Again, I want to come back to costs. Have we done a study on how much we think option one could cost us and how much option two would cost us over a period of 1 year? We, let's say, look back at 2023 or 2024, if we'd have systematically went for option one or two, how much more would it have cost us? It's because it's hard, I think, for me anyway, to make a decision on either unless I have an idea of what the cost implications
So
are.
it's hard to give specific numbers on what it would cost because it really depends on the locations that we are resurfacing in that given year. So we could be resurfacing locations where we have fine drainage and you don't need to do any of this. But if we get into a neighborhood where we have quite a bit of this, for example, one neighborhood I could think of where we're going to have to do some, we would probably be looking at an additional, probably $150,000 if we went with subdrain, or an additional like $75,000, $80,000 if we went with open ditches. So there is, do you have the capital up on the screen? Do you want to speak to that? Or?
I was just thinking if I could do fast math, but I'm not done math yet.
So that would be just, you know, my ballpark figure of what I would think that we'd be looking at.
Over a year.
Over a year, yes. So I mean, yes, there is additional costs. However, we would be working this into our budgets, and there is long-term savings of our asphalt, which, I mean, I think that will, in the long run, we will see a savings because we're not going to be repaving as often.
Yeah, I don't want to enter into the debate, but that's a key point, Councillor Fata, is let's say you have a road that starts to disintegrate over 5 years. You have unpleasant people saying, my goodness, can't you do anything right? And then because we're not going to go back to that road, but if we have to go back to that road at the time where it's needed, the actual cost of doing the road, you know, the additional time that you save on the road pays for the, you know, the additional expense on the front end to do it right in the beginning. The second thing is just so new subdivisions aren't affected. They haven't been affected. And many of the existing subdivisions back in the day weren't affected. Comriff in the downtown here, which was about 2006, did a storm sewer separation in a lot of the streets. If you go to Church and Bike and all of that, on this end, there's storm water separation. So they're doing that as part of that project. I could tell you, but I wouldn't want to name street names, but I could tell you where there is an existing, you know, problem. And obviously they showed one on one of the streets. But yeah, the other thing that council should be aware of is more of a image issue and a planning image is what you want your urban core to look like. You know, many municipalities, you know, are going into storm systems because it's prettier and it just looks more finished. You know, when I was a kid, we talked a little earlier, we had ours filled in and it was a local improvement charge in New Sudbury. And so, you know, people are are doing ditches and filling in ditches appropriately that way as local improvement charges. But yeah, I mean, the decision is yours in terms of if you want to just take that stuff out and put a ditch. But the aesthetics of that then, you know, are certainly something that council as somebody who's you know, the keepers of the community want to be mindful of as well. So I suppose we're probably leaning towards a more, you know, we're trying, you know, without trying to get into the debate, we're probably leaning into a more evolved where the swales are probably a more attractive option than ditches. But
Thank you, Mr. Barbeau. The only thing I'd say is when we're presented with something like this, I'd like to see more of a cost-benefit analysis. So, you know, saying, well, we think it's going to cost us, you know, this much over 5 years, but we actually think it's going to save us that much.
that's a good point.
And so we have, you know, better information with which to make a decision. That's my only comment on that. But thank you.
Okay, thank you, Conseiller Pellerin.
Thank you. So this work would only be done if you're resurfacing a street or something like that.
That's correct.
So that would come to at budget time.
Yes.
So why not decide at budget time when it's presented to us? We go that route or that route. Overall, I prefer the sub drain because if we're in town, anyway, that's my preference. Unless it's really not necessary, then a small ditch or a swale would do it, but
Yeah, and I mean, if we can avoid subdrain in an area, like, and have drainage, you know, have a ditch if there's existing ditches or a swale or something that will work. I mean, that's what we're gonna do. Our goal is, you know, we're bringing these budgets to you, so we're not going to be, let's just put subdrain everywhere regardless of whether we need it or not. You know, we're very cognizant of we have a certain number of dollars to work with. In terms of deciding this at budget time, I would hope that we could get a decision ahead of time, because what you'd be asking in that case, we would almost need two budgets, one where we're doing subdrain and one where we're not. And that would just be a bit of an estimating challenge for us.
then I would go with the subdrain here in town. Within the city limits, it was a subdrain unless there's already an 8-foot ditch.
We'll see Bristol.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was just going to share my thought. I think it's probably better to have something in place than going budget cycle to budget cycle, just to make sure we have a, you know, policy we're following and something staff can follow as they're preparing budgets for us on a year-to-year basis. So I'd lean that way. Just wanted to ask too about the cost. The 43, the 24, is that both sides of a 200 meter, or is that one side of?
That would be both sides.
And I think I don't think we're going there, but I'll just mention anyways, along the mayor's train of thought with ditches, and if we would have those in certain sections, but I think you answered my question, just in terms of enforcement of these ditches being filled in without proper authorization or proper pieces being put in place for drainage, but you answered that earlier, so appreciate that. That's all.
Thank you, Conseiller Bristol. Any other questions, Conseiller St. Louis?
Sorry, I think I asked it earlier, but I don't remember getting an answer. If a resident wants to, if the decision is to remove a ditch, or not a ditch, but a culvert that's been done in somebody's yard, is the option for that resident to put a subdrain, even though that area we decided to go with a ditch?
No, that would contravene our entrance bylaw.
Good.
I'll take it.
Good. Conseiller Duvall.
Thank you, through you. So just another suggestion. I don't know if this would help us move forward with something like this, but if it would be based on zoning, like R2, R3, if there's, like, I'm not too sure what Riverfront Drive is, but to me, that one seems like an obvious. It's more heavily residential. You'd have too many culverts, too many ditches, but if we can look at something that way, or maybe if it's through a section of road, depending how many entrances there are, that could determine our, you know, if it's a subdrain or if we dig ditches, instead of having, you know, 20, 50-foot ditches, instead of having just the subdrain. It'll look better, it'll be more aesthetically pleasing, but just something to have on paper. Like, I guess we need to kind of start working towards something that'll give us direction as to how we'll deal with it. So I don't know if those are two viable options, something along those lines. If you have 20 entrances over a kilometer, does that trigger, you know, if they had all filled in and we need proper drainage, would that trigger more or less a subdrain? But if you have, like, I'm thinking of Boulard Road, if someone filled in there and you have 5 homes over 2 kilometers, then we go with ditching at that point, or something like that, just for aesthetics.
Well, I think that's where you get into your urban rural. I mean, you look at Goulard Road, it has ditches right now, right? So you can't fill those ditches in, that would go against our bylaw. Whereas if you look, you know, at Riverfront Drive, those ditches have already been filled in. So that's where and that's typically just happening in urban areas.
Good. Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Katie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. To give you a bit of direction, I know that's what you're looking for. For me personally, I would do open if it's the same end result, just for cost savings to start correcting some of these issues, but that's just my opinion. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. Any other questions? No other questions? I have a few questions. What road do we actually need to fix that currently have no drainage? And I see like you've shown Riverfront.
Riverfront is on our list.
And is there any other road? The reason I'm asking the
Yes.
question is I'd like to have a costing to fix the roads before they deteriorate more. What do we need to do now?
It's like a costing, like in our 5-year plan, what the cost would be
Yeah.
to, I mean, I can bring that back to council and show you the difference of what it would be on the roads we have on our 5-year plan.
So what I'd like to see is which road don't have proper ditching. And if we fix them, we'll save the road for the next 5 to 10, maybe 15 years. If we don't do nothing, are those roads going to deteriorate within the next 5 years?
Well,
So kind of protect our infrastructure, like immediately.
well, those roads are already deteriorating. So the roads, like we are fixing roads as per our road needs study. So if I look at the roads that we have currently on our 5-year capital plan, yes, I could come up with here are the roads that almost all of the urban roads, this is going to be an issue for that we have on the capital plan.
Okay. But at least if we can come up with the most needy roads that needs proper ditching, at least I'd like to have that information.
I think to your point, to Councillor Fadam's point, I think one thing that we can do is basically take a case study on the next road that it would be on our list and bring that to council as a policy decision, which would satisfy Mr. Fadam, because we would have an estimate of cost for 200 meters of what the cost to resurface the road is. And then we can do a hypothetic on if you let them fill in the ditch on that and just, which would be status quo, the road would be only lasting 5 to 6 years. But if you do one of the two things, it would be this. And therefore you would see the difference of the overall capital and what the investment is in savings. Certainly, as Councillor Nickel indicated, the cheaper way that would satisfy drainage is just go and rip somebody's front yard out, which is on our road allowance, and create a ditch. Absolutely. But is that what you want as a municipality? That's your call. And is that what and is that what you want in terms of upheaval in those areas where they've enjoyed a certain look? So, but I think that we can bring something back in terms of a road and do an estimate of the cost of resurfacing, and we can do it. We have cost per kilometer, and so we could do that, and then you have the 200 meters, so we can do that, right?
But I'll just finish my comments because I had a few other. When we're looking at sub-drain, do we have to do the whole road sub-drain, or can like individual homeowners decide? So can we do like one property will fill in and then the others can have ditches? Or would you recommend that if we do sub-drain, we try to do the whole road?
I would recommend, if you're going to do it, that you do the whole road, because you're going to need a catch basin system, and then it would probably cost more, because you would need more catch basins to catch in the area of those sub drains, and then you would need culverts where you have ditches. So
okay, the life expectancy of a sub drain versus a ditch, because a ditch you need to dig it back up eventually. What's the life expectancy between both of them?
I'd say it's a similar life expectancy, regardless of what option we choose, because you're going to look at, for ditching, you're going to have to re-ditch eventually. You're going to have to replace those entrance culverts eventually. And with a subdrain, you're going to eventually have to replace the subdrain. They both have lifespans anywhere from 25 to 50 years. It can vary depending on different materials.
Okay, and like a subdrain, you can't like clean them? Like you can't clean those?
You can flush it, yes.
You can
There's
flush
flushing
it
maintenance,
to
yes.
keep it clean so it doesn't actually like clog up? Okay.
Yeah, but eventually it will, degrade in the same way a culvert will degrade, and they need to be replaced.
And one recommendation I would like to make to council is that we cost an open ditch, and what's the cost of doing a subdrain? And maybe pass on that cost to the homeowner that wants to fill up his drain. But if we do a road, we kind of have to be everybody on that road that agree. And for me, like you mentioned, Mr. Barbeau, could be a global ditching tax. If you want your ditches filled, the owners they pay to fill up their ditches right now. So for me, that would potentially be a recommendation that I'd like to make the council to maybe pass that expense on to the homeowners if they want their ditches filled in. So that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, just a couple more questions to understand a little better. You just mentioned about replacement or maintenance of entrance culverts. When a new subdivision is built, it's the responsibility of the developer. If a new lot is developed, it's the responsibility of the builder to install the entrance culvert. But what you said right now was like entrance culverts may need to be replaced. Is it the responsibility of the municipality or the responsibility of individual property owners?
When we're doing road work, we replace the culverts.
Okay, thank you. And in recent years, when we've done resurfacing in areas that are similar to what you're showing us on Riverfront Drive, have we just resurfaced and we haven't done anything as far as improving the drainage or fixing the drainage issues on those streets?
In some areas, we've managed to, cut some swales with the grader beforehand, but no, we haven't done any improvements.
Okay, so I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, where Councillor Gagne was going. So let's say there was a road last year that was resurfaced in an area that doesn't have the proper ditching. We now have just laid down asphalt that we are sentencing to only last us for 5 years because the drainage isn't proper there. So we're just basically waiting for it to rot. Is there a way through this policy where Riverfront might be beyond saving at this point, but if there are other roads that we've already invested the money to resurface in recent years, is there a way to now go back and address those drainage issues to try to salvage or extend the lifespan of those roads?
Well, I know in the past 2 years, the roads that have been resurfaced, we did our best to get proper drainage in there before they were resurfaced. So I don't think that we've really got that issue. And some of our bigger resurfacing jobs had like full curb and gutter, which is not what we're suggesting. We're not suggesting we put curbs and all of that, just an asphalt swale and cut basins.
Okay, thank you.
Good. TC.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So on those streets, are all the ditches filled, or are there some ditches still there and others filled them?
I would say on the majority of those streets, the ditches are all filled, but there are some streets where there is 1 or 2 ditches that are still open and that were not filled.
So it would show that ditches were in place when the street was built, or?
Yeah, you can, it's often easy to identify. You'll see, in some streets, you'll see the road actually the asphalt will swale out because the water has been running down the road for so long, and you'll see at the end of driveways, you can see where the culverts are often because they've heaved a bit, so you can see kind of the hump of where culverts are. So those are typically indicative that if there's a culvert under a driveway, there was likely a ditch there at some point.
So if ditches were there, to me, ditches should still be there. So, and the cost of ditching and whatnot is a lot less. So for me, ditching would be an option if there's already ditching part of that road, so.
I think the concern that we get into the public perception of this is a lot of these were homes that were built in, the 60s or 70s, and those ditches they have been filled in, the 60s or 70s. So they have had no ditch for, the lifespan of that home. There's probably been new owners to that home. They've never had a ditch. So I just will caution you, if you decide that we want to do open ditching, that there will likely be some backlash from residents who have never had a ditch on their home and all of a sudden are now going to have large ditches in front of their homes.
Good, Councillor TC. Good, okay. So what I recommend at this point is maybe to bring back more data, like say from the Riverfront Street, to give us an idea if we would ditch that road and get it properly ditched. What would be the added cost to maybe the homeowners to actually put sub drains in there and fill up back those ditches? And at least with that data, we'll be able to at least make a better informed decision in regards to what do we do in the urban area? Do we just do it and we pay from our capital budget? Or do we actually pass it on to the homeowners? You want to fill up your ditch? Here's the cost, and the whole road needs to accept it, and then they're going to have to pay for it. So I think that would be the proper next step. At least we'll have that data, and we'll be able to make a sound financial decision at the same time with that information. If everybody's in agreement, or if everybody has any questions, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Gagné. Like you said a while ago, I'd like to see the problem areas. The next heavy rainfall, get the foreman's out and this street's got a puddle, this street. Then we have an idea where the problem areas are to maintain the road that's already there. That's something I'd like to see. I know there's a couple in Verder that was just the Highway 64 that was crossing the Principal. When they paved the 64, they went up and there's a big puddle of water this size, and it's there for days after a rainfall. So that's a problem area. There's a couple others I know in Verner. So this is something I'd like to see.
Can I just say, along with the information, like if we look at, if we take Riverfront Drive as a project cost and so we can see the difference, I'd also be interested in knowing that, say on a 10-year horizon, if you're doing a cost per kilometer or whatever, how many kilometers would we be looking at in the next 10 years? So what's the total scope of the problem throughout the municipality? Because it's not just kind of about budget implications on one single project or one single year, but what it would cost in today's prices for, for us to solve the problem, let's say over a 10-year period or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like, how many kilometers do we actually have where we have this issue where this policy would be in effect? And I think that would give us a broader understanding of what the issue is. And, I think the only other thing I would like to say is that because this is an issue that is affecting urban areas only, there is some, to me in my head, I go, should people on gravel roads be paying for these improvements for things that, were done improperly by, in the previous generations or whatever. So, it's big. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Resto.
I don't know if that horse is going down yet or not, but through you, Mr. Chair, just some of the comments around, I think we've done a lot of work in terms of what roads need work, and we have our roads needs study that's there, and that's what we're using to schedule improvements across the municipality. So I'm not sure what the real benefit is, or if it changes our direction as a council, if we're going to start sending out staff again to essentially do that work again when we've just completed it. I think we have a roadmap of the roads that we need to repair. We're talking about this to some degree for the urban area specifically, but if we're going to start doing that and sending crews out on rains and reassessing roads, then are we going to just redo the whole road study that we have, or are we going to work with the tool that staff have developed for us and that we're currently using? I think that's, in my opinion anyways, I think that's where we should be continuing to move forward. We've done that research part of where we need improvements. This is kind of just an extra aside to it in terms of the drainage for those roads that are going to be improved.
That would be recommended by Public Works that has this impact. That would be the study.
Yeah. It's like Riverfront Drive.
If that's the one that you intend on doing first on this, that's the one that council should get the comparator to set policy from.
Okay.
Could you include the number of households impacted, like for the Riverfront Drive? So I see here you based it on seven households per 200 meters, the estimates.
Yes.
So, but when we're looking at a total project cost, if we can know what the, how many households that impacts, so that we have a kind of per household cost as well.
I can get you that. That would be great. I can do a study on that specific road and that back, and that will give you an example that will.
Okay, perfect.
My apologies, Mr. Chair, I spoke that in.
Oh, that's okay. So do you have enough information, Ms. Henning, to just move forward with this item?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Any other comments by council before we move to the next item? We're good? Good discussion. Not easy. No easy solution. Item 5.2.2, which is the River Valley RV dumping station. So I'll just pass it on to you, Ms. Henning. Your report was very detailed with the information. So I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add before I open it up for questions.
I don't think I have anything to add to what was in the report, so yeah, I'm open to questions on this one.
Okay, any questions by councilors in regards to the recommendation of actually closing the RV dump station in River Valley? So I'll open it up for any questions. Questions or comments? No questions? Conseillère Tessier?
If we're discontinuing the RV dump station for, based on your memo, which to me, is just, I would like proper signage for those who know it's there, that it's not that can be there, let's say at the highway, rather than driving down to the actual dump station, so that they're aware that it's no longer there.
So that the sign posted at the start of the road.
Yeah, and then
It's
removing
not-
that sign on the highway that there's a RV dump station.
Yeah, if we remove it, we would be removing that
Yeah,
sign on the
and
highway.
Maybe
Yes.
provide the options or of the field, well, I don't know, field or the Werner, which one would be more appropriate? Because I think there may not be that many, because in the trailer parks, I'm assuming that there is a provision for a dumping station within the park itself.
I assume that there is. And this dumping station, I suspect that it hasn't been highly used. It was, I think until last year, it was kind of very overgrown and forgotten about. So I'm not sure kind of what use it does
Well,
get,
when
but
it was used, it was not going in, obviously, and just overflowing. That was basically what was happening. But how many were being used, that I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Conseillère Tessier, any other questions or comments? See, Resto?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I agree with the recommendation in the memo and the information. We certainly want to make sure that we're being kind to the environment. And I think, and I could be wrong, but for the most part, if you're coming into River Valley, you're probably, in most cases, you're probably coming through Field of Werner to get there. There are some other options, but if we have good signage and let people know that those communities have this service available before they're heading up to River Valley, and it's like anything with change, it's going to take time and people get into new routines, but I think given the information that we have, it's probably in our best interest to close that facility and move forward.
Thank you, Conseillère Resto. Any other questions or comments? Madam Mayor?
I just say, I do like Councillor Tessier's request to have proper signage where people would come off the highway generally that redirects them to the addresses for both Werner and Field, because it does give them the options to dispose properly. So I think that's if that can be added to the shutdown plan, I'd be in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other questions? Any comments? We're done? Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. So I'll pass it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is 5.3, which is our Community Services Committee. Pass the floor to our chair, Councillor Rivard.
There's quite a bit to go through for community services tonight. Hoping for some good discussions like that last one. So first up, we have development of a recreation, culture, and leisure master plan that has been recommended by our staff. And just, I'll pass it over to Mr. Pouline, but just to mention that the recommendation is that the estimated cost for the plan of $75,000 would be paid for by remaining municipal modernization funds. So I'll pass over to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair and I went back and forth on this one because council is faced tonight with a recommendation from staff to create a recreation, culture, and leisure master plan. And also on tonight's agenda, we have items that come from requests for facilities to be constructed on the recreation and culture side. So first off, master plan, as the memo explains, council is aware of what the investment is required in our existing facilities moving forward through our building condition assessment review. Council has received multiple requests from community groups and organizations on new recreation infrastructure. And I've highlighted a couple: a multi-use indoor sports gymnasium facility that can house pickleball, volleyball, basketball. Council's received a request for a concrete pad at the Cashby Outdoor Rink for year-round use. Outdoor pickleball facility at our tennis courts here at the Sturgeon Falls Beach, and the redevelopment of Goulart Park, which you'll see that the Rec and Culture Advisory Committee is recommending. Those are significant investments, significant projects. In addition to that, at the committee level, both at the Youth and Recreation and Culture committees, there's no shortage of ideas and recommendations or projects. To name a few, a facility in support of a dance studio or an art studio. Dog parks has been discussed at this table as well, enhancing trails at the museum and creating new trails at the Cashby waterfront. Upgrades and renovations to soccer and baseball fields, as well as outdoor basketball courts. And that's another request that is in front of council this evening. As mentioned in the memo, we're definitely seeing an increase in recreation and leisure activities in our communities and with our community, which is extremely positive. But with this comes an opportunity to create a recreation, culture, and leisure master plan that will guide the corporation moving forward. Such a plan would help the municipality guide and manage parks and open space development, recreation and leisure services, programs, events, facilities, marinas, and other recreation amenities. The master plan is a comprehensive exercise that considers community input, demographic data, and growth forecasts, participation and usage levels, trends, and best practices. And it would provide council with a key tool in making decisions pertaining to recreation, arts, and culture moving forward. It is staff's recommendation, as our chair has mentioned, that we approve the creation of a comprehensive recreation, culture, and leisure master plan. The cost is estimated at $75,000. We do have funding left over from the modernization fund that would pay for those consulting services.
Thank you for the added info, Mr. Poulin. I'll open the floor to any questions, comments regarding the recommended plan. As discussed, as mentioned, we did go back and forth a little bit, but I was looking forward to see what people have to say about this.
I'll open with some questions. Through you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Crata, how much is left in the modernization fund in total?
About $280,000.
Is there a deadline by which that money needs to be used? Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Poulin. Some early parts of work have been done at the Recreation Culture Committee as far as developing an asset map for both our facilities and recreation, culture, and sport organizations within the municipality. That would be used as part of the foundation for this report.
Mr. Chair, it certainly would be data that would assist the consulting firm to have a context. What we've developed, we're in the process of developing, is an environmental scan for recreation, leisure, and culture to highlight the different associations, not only our infrastructure, but to highlight the groups, the associations, the contact information. So if somebody's looking to register their child in soccer, for example, we would have that in our rec and leisure guide, all of our seniors clubs. So that is just a catch-all to make it easy for our residents to know what services, programs, and yes, facilities that exist in our community or in our municipality.
Do we have a current list of our kind of physical assets for recreation and culture, not just facilities as in buildings and infrastructure, but also recreational spaces? So like, do we have a current inventory of that? So every soccer field, every park, every playground, do we have that information already available?
We certainly do, yes.
Thank you. Conseiller Saint-Louis.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Mostly just a comment. We did have that long discussion at the rec committee meeting. It was very engaging, very nice to see. And they did provide us with all those assets that we have throughout our municipality, from Monetteville all the way to River Valley and everywhere. So it was nice. It's a lot more than you can imagine we have than what when we received the information. They provided us good information, and I believe what at the committee, what we're putting forward, what we're asking, we'll see it a bit more later on. I think it was definitely supported by everyone to try to support the rec and leisure that is growing here, like Mr. Poulin said, in our municipality, because it is growing fast, and our municipality is growing fast.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Restel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a couple of questions. One comment first, I guess it's good to see that we're not using, tax base dollars for this. We're accessing other funds that have been provided through other levels of government for the study. Questions, what are we looking at for timeframes in terms of getting the study completed? I know we have a process to get it going, but do we have an idea of when we might have this ready?
I would say, ideally it'd be ready before council deliberation for budget deliberation in November. I think that would be a stretch, especially because we want to engage our residents, we want to engage our partners and community groups. If you look at scope, developing a scope, issuing, awarding a contract, I would say we're probably 6 to 9 months away from getting a final product. That would be my estimate, Councillor.
And then my, I guess, follow-up question is, even looking at our agenda this evening, we do have some items that are being brought forward for consideration. Does engaging in this study slow us down or prevent us from moving forward in different areas that we've already had some discussions on? And I guess I don't know if that's for us to decide if we still want to keep moving ahead, or are we going to hold back to get this comprehensive master plan done?
My view would be that the council selected in this term to move things forward. Obviously, good planning helps, but I don't think you want to just park it and wait for a plan. You want to look at every option, the ability to pull it off, the financing, the sustainability of the space.
That's all.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was a little worried about that as well. There, say grants come available or something, and we wish to move something forward, and then I guess the plan would just reflect that. That was one of my concerns. Councilor, you got any?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would recommend that if there's any urgent item that we'd like to have move forward, and we think they're feasible and we can, to try to move those immediately, if possible. But the other thing also, I'd like to have the stats of users, the amount of users per group, and logistically, does it make sense to have 12 basketball courts across West Nipissing, for example? So I'd like to see that also at the same time, so that we're making good decisions, but we can start with 1 or 2 and then we can grow from there, seeing how much it's being used or not. But I think there are some small items that wouldn't maybe break the bank, that we could potentially maybe move with a few of them at the same time. It would show progress from our side. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Unless somebody else has already. Okay, so I have a couple of concerns just about the plan over, like having a consultant come in to do this type of plan. I feel like the rec and culture portfolio is something that is very close to us and very close to the people that we represent. And I'm worried that the use of a consultant from outside the area, whether it's Orillia or Sudbury, or somebody who is not familiar with the community, really takes away a lot of council's voice, because I think that from the start as a team, we've talked about, how to have more efficient use of our assets and how to have a more efficient operations that really serve people. And we've had a lot of those discussions. And I think that within our individual wards, we've talked to a lot of people, and I'm worried that a consulting firm kind of, it removes us a little bit from that process. The other concern that I have is that, there were some studies and reports that have been done by consultants that we've received as a council that were initiated under the last term of council. But we have a lot of strategy documents that we are following already, that have already had a lot of really good things. So we have our roads needs study, we had the operational review, and I think that there's still a lot of things that have been identified in the operational review that could be amended. I know that I've had conversations with other members in regards to things like the service request system. So when you're looking at the modernization fund as a total, if there is $280,000 left, yes, it could be spent on something like this plan, but perhaps that there are better ways to spend that money that would actually result in, instead of just having another piece of paper on a shelf, that we could use the modernization funds for actual tangible actions that improve the efficiency according to some of these strategic documents we've already received. There is a lot, and we have a lot of stuff. We have a lot of assets, and all of those assets cost money. It's not that I don't see a value in having a plan. I just don't know whether at the cost of $75,000 and a delay of 9 months, whether it's a good investment for us. That's my feeling on the proposal. Thank you, Councillor Robert.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, thought Councillor Tessie was raising her hand.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'll raise my hand.
Floor is yours.
Just following up to what Madam Mayor said, is studies were done before. Can those studies be compiled to kind of cover what this plan would have, so that we can have those? I know they're online, but if we can have the list so that we're not missing anything, so that everybody can look at the same thing and then maybe determine if that plan is needed or it's already covered in those other studies that we had, or how old those previous studies are too. Just whether we're making a decision on this today or not, maybe we could have a list of the studies that take part of this plan.
So, Claire, would you have an answer?
The council has identified certain recreation and arts priorities within your own term plan. As part of the old mill site redevelopment, there's a component for trails. There isn't really a component of the housing study that pertains to this subject matter. I'm just thinking of the recent studies. We do have a tourist attraction study that was done for Minnehaha Bay and all along the Sturgeon River corridor that could potentially have an impact on our marina as a site, and potentially the museum as well. But I'm just thinking out loud, Councillor, I don't, none of our current studies come to mind that would tackle specifically the rec and leisure component of, and the arts and culture component of what is being requested. Now, we do have building condition assessment review that tells us basically over the next 10 years what we need to spend as far as investment to maintain and repair and upgrade our facilities. And to the mayor's point, we do have good knowledge on what we currently have and what some of the needs of our groups are moving forward. But we don't have a detailed plan as to how to get that. So as an example, this evening, you're faced with multiple requests, and it's up to council to decide whether they want to invest in these requests and support these requests or not. But I just think that we're lacking some fundamental data to assist council in making those informed decisions. And this type of plan would assist that, but I respect council's wishes. If council doesn't wish to proceed with a consulting firm and we're just going to piecemeal it as requests come in, then that's council's prerogative to provide that direction to staff as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything bad? So I'll just mention I'm somewhat on the fence, obviously being chair of community services and listening to staff, I understand there is a need from staff perspective or a wish from staff perspective to have a master plan such as this. Back to what Madam Mayor had mentioned about the funds or where to spend it. With 280,000, it makes me wonder, like there must be other sorts of plans out there, but it seems like we have sufficient funds to do this. Or maybe the timeline isn't what we're looking for in terms of the term that we're in, already being about 2 years in, and then another potential budget year. So we'd be looking at the plan kind of affecting the 2026 budget, I believe, if it wouldn't be in time for the 2025 budget. Maybe it's something to come back to then and explore the possibility of other modernization fund expenditures, but it's kind of for me. So I'll take a vote of hand, see who's kind of in favor of a master plan or conducting a master plan for our recreation and culture. So whoever would be for it, please raise your hand. I guess that's defeated at that point. All right.
Well, you would have the tie-breaking vote.
Oh. Yeah, well, I didn't raise my hand, so yeah, it's defeated. I counted myself. You just confused me a little bit there. So.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does staff have the manpower to do this study, since we need data regardless? We just can't guess and just move forward. So who would be putting a report together to give us that information if we're not hiring a consultant to do it? Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have staff resources. They're dedicated in very specific projects. We have, the benefit of a very competent, qualified new manager. I would suggest that obviously on a case-by-case basis, a little bit like requesting more information in Public Works, we can get as much information as we can on an ad hoc basis, but it would not be obviously as comprehensive as using additional resources for somebody to help complement. So, if council has already made a straw poll vote, but if it's council's wish to have that, then we would be looking at it on a per issue basis and providing it that way. Unless council wants us to stop and analyze, then you're in the same boat as not getting things done anyway. So, I would say if council doesn't want the plan, which is what it appears, then we would be looking at on a case-by-case basis, bringing things forward to you with data, and council would request additional information if our data is insufficient.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I believe if ever we were to revisit this, be allowed to, right, at this point, because it wasn't actually brought through as a resolution, correct?
You're correct.
But yeah, okay. We'll move forward to the, sorry?
Councillor Rivard, I'll just note that where's the clock? Oh my God, what's going on?
Weird.
Okay, it is now 7:59, so I would ask to do a recess and we'll pick up where we are when we come back. Madam Clerk?
Seconded.
Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor St. Louis and Councillor Restoll, please.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Restool. At approximately 7:59 PM, a motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
All in favor? Carried.
Bienvenue de clocher ton cadran.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are still in committee of the whole for community services. I'll pass the floor back to Councillor Rivard, our chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the next item on our agenda is a discussion regarding a recommendation brought forward by the Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee. So Councillor St. Louis and I sit on this board, and we had quite a few meetings where we discussed priorities for the Rec and Culture Committee. And there were quite a few ideas that went back and forth, and then we kind of all agreed on the one to try and take a look at the Goulart Park redevelopment, or at least have a strategy for it. Realizing that it's quite a large endeavor and a heavy price tag to a project of that size, it was recommended to phase it out in a few stages by the committee. And there were a few options, not limited to these options, that were discussed with the committee in terms of things to look at, which were on here. So repairs, renovations to the baseball fields, walking trail around the perimeter of the park, lit and potentially becoming a skating trail during the winter, Zamboni nearby, or parking along Corsall Road, similar to how John Street has parking now for the baseball fields. A new playground or repurpose of a playground that we currently have, and potentially basketball court. Something else I noticed that wasn't on where the addition of trees was mentioned, just in terms of, you know, creating a multi-use kind of green space, a central park within the community, as something that everyone can enjoy. Definitely multi-use was something that the Rec and Culture Committee was discussing. So we added all those ticket items on there as a potential phase one. If it's too large or the price tag would be too much, you know, it would potentially scale down. But the idea was just to bring it to council for a discussion to either elaborate or decline such a recommendation. So I'll open. Monsieur Poulin, would you have any further comments?
Comments I'd have to make is obviously this is not a budgeted item. It's one of many priorities. As I previously mentioned, we do have a asset management plan for our building condition assessments. This would obviously, if council wishes to proceed with this as a priority project, we would certainly need to seek funding options. That being said, you can't go to the funding agencies for too many applications currently. And we will have other needs for our facilities. So again, looking to council to make a decision whether this is your number one priority, and we'll look at funding options to support this project. So the funding option would be something that if council directs staff, we will look into a possibility of funding and what the municipality would have to cover as far as the percentage cost.
Thank you. And with that information, I'll open the floor to any questions, comments. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So this is something that obviously was brought forward many, many years ago, because the Goulart Park redevelopment project and information is already out there, correct? So obviously, I'm not sure how much. We weren't councillors back then. I don't know how much money was put into this process in the past. So taxpayers' dollars have already gone into it. So I find it hard to believe that we need to stop. Right? I think this is something that we should follow through. I think it's something that we need to continue, considering that we've already, and I assume that we've already put a substantial amount of funds into the redevelopment project or the assessment process of it. Being on the committee, I know there's a lot more than just the one phase. Like Councillor Rivard said, there's definitely many other buildings or amphitheaters and cabins and all sorts of stuff. And it looks fantastic. But what we had discussed is just stuff that we can do that the cost won't be as excessive, like the repair of the ball fields and taking either a playground from one area and bringing it. So I think my opinion is, I think it's something that we should move forward with. And and definitely look into, have our staff look into.
Thank you, Councilor Stanley. Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Along the lines of what Councillor St. Louis brought up, I believe that this was first discussed in council in maybe 2016, 2017. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, and at that time, there was significant public consultation done in development of the vision for the park.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just provide council with a brief overview. I should have probably done that from the onset. So on 2016, this was brought forth by council to have a plan developed for Goulard Park. We retained the services of JL Richards. They came in, they did a full assessment, and they created I guess a 10,000-foot overview of what the potential park could look like. Everything from beach volleyball being relocated at that site to small soccer fields to 2 baseball diamonds with lights to a park, a skate park, a skateboard park, a walking trail. It was just packed with different options. Then council took that and retained the services of a second consultant, which was Perry and Perry out of Sudbury. And then full consultation were done. We had open houses, people could come in, give their input, provide ideas and what they thought the park could be used for. A second plan was created with the input of council, and that was, it went from being jam-packed with recreational activities to having a farmer's market, only 1 baseball field, no soccer field. There was a big fountain, a change room and washroom facilities, a playground. So it was scaled back somewhat. So both plans were presented to the Rec and Culture Committee, and then the ideas started flowing around that table. And this is what basically was highlighted as what the committee feels is a need for the phase 1 development of that property in Sturgeon.
Thank you. Super.
Yeah.
Mayor? Yes.
Sorry. So with that, I'd also just, as we're talking about this, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of former Councillor Yvonne Duhaime, who I believe really led the charge in advocating for this project as well. I haven't seen both. I think I've only seen the JL Richards copy of that, but I'm sure that could we ask that every member of council be sent both kind of overviews of that of the plans for that park, just like the grand overview, and just as a starting point as well. I'll pass it back to you for now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I apologize. I know you had asked me for those plans, and I may have forgotten. So, anybody else with questions or comments? I'll see you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My only comment is that I think it's a great idea. I think we should maximize the current spaces, but I think we should all look at other spaces that are under or non being utilized by current taxpayers, and maybe use the sell-off of those assets to actually help to pay these kinds of projects. So that's my comment in regards to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-City Guy. That was in response to that. There was a bit of discussion about that at the advisory committee level. And just before I kind of give my 2 cents, would anyone have any questions or comments regarding that? Or Councillor Nicol, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a great idea, but out of curiosity, do you know what phase 1, the rough would be?
Council, we have not determined that. No, not at this point. If it's council's direction to proceed with phase 1, we can certainly cost it out, but we have not gone that far yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hessel.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, just a similar question, just costs associated with it. I don't think we definitely can't make any decisions without understanding what the costs are. And I was there back in the day when we worked on this with staff here. So a little bit of fuzzy memory about it, but if we can get updated, get refreshed with those, and for those who weren't around the table back then, just to get a visual of what was looked at back then. But I think part of it too is if we're revisiting this, I think from what I remember that part of the work put in before was to be ready in case there are opportunities that come forward for funding, for partnerships with other levels of government, and just to have something that we can not have to scramble and get something together if there is opportunities that come. But I think costs would be important. And the other thing too is looking at some of these things here and just considering if we're thinking of moving existing infrastructure, just to have good discussion around that as well, because if we're taking from somewhere else and there's people, constituents in different areas who are going to be losing close access to some of this too. So I think we need a fuller discussion, but I think some of the pieces have already been in place, like the outdoor rink that we relocated from Peters, Springer Township, former Springer Township. So it's piecemeal, but I think part of this discussion too goes back to our former discussion earlier tonight about having a master plan and what we want to see, over time. But if we're not proceeding with that, then I guess what I'd like to see is just some costs associated with these potential phase 1 steps.
Thank you. Mr. Barbeau?
Well, I was just going to add, obviously, this is just an FYI kind of document. Regardless of how it's funded, we need to put in a concrete plan and bring that back to council as to what the funding is and whether it's a budgetary issue or whether it's a consolidation issue. I can tell you that the original plan dealt with, from a revenue perspective, taking in which the rink was moved, but also taking the baseball field from the Springer Community Center area and then taking that land, selling it to assist in the development of this as well. So that was the original idea, and there were issues with respect to the connection of how the septic system was interconnected with the building. That was the former community center. But certainly that was part of the initial plan. So, this is a fairly extensive issue. I think that we can piecemeal and look at repairs and renovations to the baseball field for what that's worth. But I think that this is a major initiative that would probably take some planning in 2024 and implementation potentially in 2025. And it would be a budgetary and a strategic discussion to council at that point.
Thank you. Madam Mayor?
I actually just have a general statement and then question about Goulet Park. It's such a great location. It's such a big area of land connected right to our community center. And, somebody who drives on Corso Road and on John Street every day, it's so underutilized considering, the density of population around that area. It really is sad to drive by there every day and see it almost empty. Occasionally there'll be a baseball game. Occasionally there'll be like 4 people walking a dog in the park. But it really is so beautifully strategically located for our community that I think that any small steps that it's not a project that's going to be done overnight because there is significant cost. But any small steps that we can take, planting some trees, refurbishing the ball diamonds, any of the small steps that we can take along that path, I think are positive steps. And I don't, it's the old, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time, right? So, I would be in favor of starting to look at what those small bites, those small steps that we can take to move forward within our budget limitations to do that. And then my question for staff is, because I don't know the answer to this, why is it fenced in like a jail prison yard? Because I drive through a lot of communities and you see a lot of beautiful park space. I was in London visiting my dad this weekend. He lives right across the street from a beautiful park. And there's no fence that makes you feel like you have to go in and go out. It's almost very intimidating for people because they have to find the gate, they have to find the opening. And so I'm just curious as to how that came about and whether there is like a logic that I'm not seeing in having like the entire perimeter of the park fence so that it makes it kind of at least seem very inaccessible.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my response is because. So it was the Goulart family, obviously the prominent family invested in that. And that park was in that configuration for the last 20 years. One of the benefits of the fence back in the day was you had the Sturgeon Falls Special Events Committee that used to host concerts, and there were licenses and that kind of thing, and there were tickets sold and that kind of thing. So that might be one reason in the vision of past councils or even Sturgeon Falls back in the day. But there, again, if we come back with a plan and council says take the fencing down as one of the things and open it up to make it area and start doing things to renovate, certainly we'll look at that. But we have to look at it in the form of a plan. It can't just be piecemeal and plant a tree and find out that it shouldn't be there. We're using it for something else. So we have to be a little bit more strategic in how we do that. But certainly we'll have a look at the plan, have a look at what the Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee has indicated and start putting a little bit more meat to this to bring back to either the committee or the council. I believe the committee, we should be paying homage to the committee first. And providing that information back to the committee.
Thank you. Yeah. I wonder as well if it must have helped with the Fiddle Fest too, the fence, but I do agree it'd be nice to not have a fence when you go to not only larger cities, but also smaller rural communities like ours. It's just you can enter the park from anywhere around, right? And go enjoy the park. You don't have to kind of keep walking around until you get there or to get out as well. But
yeah, just one question, Mr. Chair. Is there any grants available to kind of help us out financially?
Yeah, so I was going to mention a few that I had found, but I'm not too sure if they fit in too well. But in terms of costing, I know that what Ms. Dupre said there as well, it's staff are cautious because there's a lot of projects that will need some grants. So if we can find kind of project-specific grants, I think that would be the best idea. I know for myself, I had found the Blue Jays Field of Dreams grant, which they've donated about $15 million over 10 years to 163 communities. That's 16 communities a year. Last year there were 14, and there's an emphasis on Ontario. So Blind River just got money last year, Pembroke did, and it really helps. And I think we're sitting well with our youth baseball beginning, so we could pitch that. Well, we didn't really maintain our fields because for years we lost baseball, but now we have baseball again. So it may entice the Blue Jays to throw us some money, and that may even cover one full field, right? And then, as you mentioned, also to sell some, potentially consolidate assets. That's what we had mentioned in our term plan as well, was to look at consolidating assets or redevelop Goulart Park. So with Pidou's bringing the rink over, I know some people wouldn't like that, but potentially it would be you have your two baseball fields at Goulart, then you don't require that baseball field at Pidou's, and you'd be able to sell, I think there's almost 7 acres. You're looking at nearly $500,000 that could really help the redevelopment there. And then next thing you know, you have both baseball fields paid, and you also have a brand new playground there that could be brought over. It mentions playground. So you're looking at, there are costs, obviously, but if it's well planned out, as mentioned, I think it could, this phase that was discussed at our committee, if Councillor Staley agrees, it was discussed and we had kind of found some ways that would be more cost beneficial. I remember the paving of the John Coursol parking and the parking at the rink. Maybe that would be the time when we pave a basketball court, because you already have the machinery mobilized, right? So then that may lower costs as well. But those were definitely things that came up. There was also an OPG grant for beautifying communities with dams that could potentially cover tree costs. There's a few things, but I didn't want to mention all this or bring it to the agenda as a recommendation without, I think that would be, like we said, piece by piece. We could look at these options and discuss them as a council and see how we'd like staff to move forward once we receive a plan or whatnot.
And just to add, through you, Mr. Chair, there's obviously Trillium, which doesn't have any open streams right now for capital, but they generally open up a capital stream in September. And then NOHFC has some community building funds, but even funds like, if you remember very early in our term, Councillor Nicol brought forward a proposal for a community garden that fell under the Hydro One communities grants. So, on top of government organizations, there are also private sector grants like the OPG one you mentioned, and like the Hydro One grant that, it might just be 25,000 at a time or 20,000 at a time, but it gets us there. So, there are opportunities, and staff's aware of them. And when I see them, I usually throw them over, and I hope you all do the same if you get information like that come through to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to add a little bit to my sales pitch, this is something that I really care for. I think it would be great for our community. Is the idea, as Madam Mayor had mentioned, just the lack of activity going on there, or we have this beautiful green space that we could really capitalize on. We may have other assets that aren't used very much. So when you're consolidating assets, I understand it would be fairly expensive to engage on a project like this, but then we may also save in other ways of maintenance costs or staff time, which means our staff would potentially be able to maintain things more efficiently. They don't have to drive a lawnmower everywhere or take care of a baseball field 10 kilometers from another. If you have things in one area, that may also help us there. But just the idea of making a nice community space where someone could bring their kids, someone could play on the park, someone could walk around the park, someone could be playing baseball or shooting hoops, and while someone's just sitting in the grass throwing a frisbee or reading a book. It just seems like a great community space that we could really benefit from for the municipality as a whole. It wouldn't just be Sturgeon Falls, it'd be all of West Nipissing that could benefit. That's my opinion.
What kind of direction would you like at this point, Mr. Purple?
I think that regardless of the funding sources, and I think I want to have a meeting with staff. We have new staff, and there were some some gaps for a little while, and now they have a full complement. I think what we need to do is look at what the specifics of the plan and start providing cost, whether it be a small steps forward or what have you. First thing is quantify it. And then the next thing is figure out how to pay for it within either our operating budget, future budget, grants, and or some consolidation. So I think what we will be doing with this is basically putting a little bit more meat to it and coming back to the committee.
Thank you. And that would be if council wished to see staff do that, correct? So by a straw poll, it kind of sounds like there's a desire for it, but by a show of hands, would we be in favor of directing staff to do what Mr. Barbeau has just mentioned? Yeah, that's it. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the pickleball court. So we received the delegation early this year or late last year in regard to pickleball courts at the current tennis courts. And we have a bit of information on our agenda regarding cost. Keep in mind that it's just for the resurfacing, the numbers we saw, but I believe Mr. Blay might add a bit.
So through you, Mr. Chair, as you explained, the Pickleball Club had provided council with some preliminary estimates to resurface only one of the three tennis courts and convert that into permanent pickleball courts, so including 4 permanent nets, resurfacing with a coating membrane, and putting a windscreen where pickleball is played around the existing fence. And that would leave the tennis courts without any work being done on that side. So option A is resurface only the pickleball portion, and that's at a cost of 50 to 60,000, and that includes permanent posts, permanent nets, resurfacing, line painting, and then still be ongoing yearly maintenance to that. Option B, what we looked at is resurfacing the entire area so that the tennis courts would also be resurfaced, and having a fence delineate the 4 pickleball courts going north and south, and then delineating the tennis courts from there's some inside fencing. Would be a cost of 90 to 100,000. That does not include any repairs or any work to the existing fence or the lights. So what you're basically doing is just resurfacing an existing asphalt surface, and the life expectancy of that would be around 5, 7, maybe a bit more, depending on if we continue doing regular yearly maintenance. At a certain point within the next 5 years, we think that the existing fencing, like I don't know how high it is, it must be 12, 15 feet, is going to need to be changed. The lights are going to need to be upgraded. So we would recommend, if council wants to invest in that facility, to basically do a complete overhaul and to fix it and have it permanently, so we don't have to go back in 5, 6, 7 years and have to reinvest another amount. The other decision points for council to consider is that the right place for permanent pickleball? Do we want to look at permanent pickleball, outdoor pickleball facility, potentially at Goulart Park? I know we've suggested to certain members of the West Nipissing Pickleball Club that I've been in contact with that we've got a beautiful facility and field, covered outdoor rink with a beautiful new concrete pad, and it wasn't well received, I can tell you that. Those are decision points for council to consider. But we would certainly caution council to just basically resurface a portion of that existing facility, or even resurfacing the entire facility without touching the entire project. And the cost of replacing the existing fencing and the lights, we don't have. We're just looking for direction on this, and then we could take the proper steps following that.
Thank you. Open the floor to any. See.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned there's yearly maintenance. So what is it involved in the yearly maintenance?
So again, the contractor would come back on a yearly basis to look at cracks or new deficiencies formed in the actual surface, because it's just a coating that they put on. It would probably extend the life expectancy of the existing surface, but like anything else, it's just, you just don't do it and leave it there. The company does recommend them coming back on a yearly basis and touching up cracks and other deficiencies that form on that surface.
There's a cost to that?
There would be. We don't have, they didn't provide us with those details. It's going to depend on the scope of work that they see from a year-to-year basis.
Two questions. One, it wasn't well received by the people in the field or the people playing?
No, the one comment I received is this: if I'll be very blunt, if you think I'm going to drive out there to play pickleball, I won't finish the phrase. So we're looking at putting pickleball nets and encouraging people to use that facility. Whether there are people that are willing to drive, I'm sure there are some. It's not all, but that's one of the comments I did receive. So it's a challenge. We're currently offering indoor pickleball 4 times a week, daytime, and two nights a week inside the arena at the arena here in town. We even have one night to try to encourage youth to participate in that sport. So it's well received, it's well attended. So you can play in a perfectly nice location on a perfectly flat surface. There are 4 courts in the arena. So We're doing our part to support pickleball, but it's the ask to council to have a permanent outdoor pickleball facility that is in front of you this evening.
That was my second question. You answered part of it, the arena in Sturgeon. We still have the ice surface inverter that's available, not year round, but a long time. I don't know, to go and spend that much money for when we do have a nice surface to play on, and like you say, the arena is there. And that's my comment.
I appreciate your comments, Councilor Pelletier. Would anyone else? Councilor Restoll.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's interesting information that there's already a facility available for the individuals, and I'm thinking from a timing perspective, if you have outdoor courts, you're probably going to use those for about the same time as they'd be using the arena, more or less, for the year, right? Because you probably wouldn't play, obviously, in the winter. I'm not a pickleball expert, but I don't know if you get some cleats on and get out there.
I think they've been fortunate. It's all weather dependent, Councillor, but I do think they've had an opportunity over the last 2 years that they've played into December on the outdoor court.
On the outdoor?
Yeah. Again, obviously, dependent. If it starts snowing in October, that's a moot point. But if we have a really late fall, they've enjoyed playing out there.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I'm supportive of this. I think there's interest within the community, and I think it's, it's kind of evolution. It's a newer sport. It certainly wasn't there when I was younger. So you want to support as many demographics as you can with our recreational programming that we have. But I think this discussion, in my mind anyways, kind of goes back to the discussion we just had on the previous with the recommendations from the Rec and Culture Advisory Committee. It wasn't something that was on their list, but if we're looking at Goulart Park and that's something in the information that we have here, that this could be something that sits there as well for the permanent home, then that's something else that we can, I don't want to step on the toes of the committee, but maybe something else that we can add to that list and look at a long-term decision on how we move forward with this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Did you have something to say?
No, I am familiar personally with my advanced age with the pickleball general community. So the one comment I would make is, knowing the pickleball community and the comment that was made about a beautiful facility and field, and my experience with pickleball individuals is they will go wherever there's a pickleball court. So if they think that that's the case, if there's a beautiful pickleball court and field, I think that that's probably one person that's saying that. The other thing I would caution council, just because I play it, and if you've read some of the literature on pickleball, it's fantastic, but it's very loud. It's a very loud sport, and so you want to make sure that it's in a location, and there have been complaints at the City of Ottawa, I've seen, with respect to even limiting times, because it's very intrusive to people's backyards and that. So just want to share that view, and I do know the pickleball community. They're well, I wouldn't want to say what one of my brothers calls it, but they're very passionate with respect to pickleball, and so.
Okay, well, Mr. Barbeau kind of stole my thunder. I think the most important question that staff's put in front of us is whether or not the location where the tennis courts sit now is the right location for that, and if we're going to invest money, and like the 50 or 60,000, I think we put 50,000 aside in the budget for this year. It really seems like very much of a temporary fix. It doesn't seem like it's something that's kind of a long-term solution. But I was going to mention about the noise. I don't believe that the municipality has had any or many complaints at this point, but it only takes one house to change hands, and somebody who finds that, like the courts really are almost in people's backyards, where they're located now. And so whether or not that really is an ideal, location, for a court of a sport that makes a really unique sound, is a question I kind of had from the start. Do we have, I'm going to start through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pruden, do we have any idea what the comparative cost to put, like, say, we have a triple court there now, it's 3 tennis courts? And what the comparative cost would be, because you say the fence and the lighting are going to need to go, let's say, for the next 3 to 5 years. So what's the comparative cost to doing, like, say, a double court in Goulart Park over what it would be to fix up what we have? Like, is there much value left in the asset as it stands?
We don't have that information. We certainly can get it. Sudbury have built outdoor pickleball courts, and so is North Bay.
Okay.
So there's data we can get fairly easily on what it costs and how many courts. I don't know how many courts are community warrants moving forward. Is it 2? Is it 4? What's the need? But we can certainly get some costing as far as if council were to consider building a new facility at a separate location for that matter. We can easily come up with those numbers.
Yeah, I'd just like to see, like, if it were something that was placed within, like the Goulart Park area, like what's the difference in cost between fixing what we have, which, again, I don't think, this $100,000 gets us to, there'll still be work to do after $100,000 is put in. And so, then you look at, well, is there a better place for it if we're going to spend that kind of money? That would be my.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll see if I can.
Thank you, Chairman. Just curious, I never played the game. Can the game be played, for example, at the hall, at the arena in Vernon?
Yeah, we had it there for a brief period.
Really? And that's year round?
Indoor, yeah, they use that facility for a short period in the winter months.
It wouldn't be ideal given the height of the ceiling and the type of floor. It's a tile floor. So it's not ideal, but we agreed to put it there as a concession to past council because they were getting requests and we put it there. We did run into some difficulties with access and liability with respect to a slip and fall. So it's not as ideal as being on the floor of the arena.
So if I can add, they made it work, although like the flooring is not flooring that is sort of sporting activities. The West Nipissing pickleball folks want to play daytime in the winter, especially. And the gymnasium in the schools aren't available. They don't want to play evening. They want to play daytime because most are retired and they're looking for daytime activities to do. So the Centre de Santé is that their gymnasium is booked with constant programs. So, and the schools don't allow outside agencies or organizations to come in during the daytime. So there's really no gymnasium available to them in the community for the hours that they want to play. So that's why at one point we looked at a temporary solution at the Werner Hall, and it was short-lived. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just, there is pickleball at the North Manettville Center. So that you know that. Community Center, North Manettville, offers pickleball.
Thank you for the it's over there.
They have
Not
very
a
high
big
ceilings.
Yeah. And then just don't see anybody else. And in terms of the lights, I was just wondering, do they play pickleball that much at night? And like, does the tennis court have to be lit up at night? Or would that be a cost savings, right? Because if we're worried about the sound, I don't know. If the sun goes down at 9, I don't think anybody should be playing pickleball at that time. anymore, and that would be a cost savings.
We could, but I mean, you know, it just provides additional activity to those that are working that do want to play outdoor pickleball. It's just the lights are there. It's a matter of upgrading our lights to LED lighting at some point. We do have the volleyball court that is extremely busy as well, the beach volleyball. I've driven by a couple nights recently, and there's cars parked all the way down Main Ethel, so it's a busy spot. The beach is also a popular venue as well. It's a lot of work have been done by volunteers to bring that back. So, you know, it could be an added value to have a lit tennis or pickleball club or court for people to use later in the evening.
And then just to mention about the driving aspect, like I know people who live in large cities or even people in Sudbury who play pickleball. I'm pretty sure lots of them would drive 30 minutes to go play pickleball. If we have this beautiful over $1 million facility that's brand new, covered as well, so now rain's not a factor. You can play it anytime. It's lit as well. It's already got pretty much everything you need. It's got a little center where people could get dressed and change their shoes, things like that, and use the washroom. It seems ideal that we have this facility, but in terms of the tennis court, it is old, right? I remember we had discussed it before, and maybe at one point it would have to be changed either way, but a little lost as to what kind of direction we're looking for now. Are we looking to approve some sort of pickleball resurfacing, or would it be more or less which option that we would look at? Or would we look to do the entire work at once if we decide to move forward with something? Just appreciate a bit of guidance from someone. We'll come out to see other hand up first.
Yeah, I think with the previous recreational with Goulart Park, I think maybe having that phase one, and they have a location field that they could play if they want to play during the day. And then being in field, the distance, I know some of them probably drive to Sudbury to play in tournaments or whatnot. So from Sturgeon to field, it's not long. And then they could probably attract 2 people from the River Valley that might be interested, and to them, field is more convenient than coming to Sturgeon. So to me, I would just kind of, for me, to hold off and see how the development of Goulart and then the other aspects. So
thank you.
Yeah, I'll add on to the comments. We currently have facilities are available for the West Nipissing Pickleball Association to play. So I think they're being serviced. Instead, there's 2 items. I think they'd appreciate a closed-in facility that they can use in the wintertime. So maybe building a kind of a small gymnasium around the Goulart Park area might be an option. I would encourage West Nipissing Pickleball to try to fundraise some money to help everybody out, but also their association to grow. And I'm sure there's most likely grants available because pickleball is the fastest growing sport currently in the world. So I think there are possibly grants, and I would encourage the West Nipissing Pickleball Association to look at that to see what they can also do for their game in this area, and maybe look at those options because we can't do it all with taxpayers' money. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So in relation to pickleball, I guess we'll just start with a straw poll as to who would like to see something done with the current tennis courts that we have by a show of hands. Not much appetite for that one. And then that pretty much ends it there. Because that's what was brought on the agenda, right? Sorry there not to laugh at the idea, but yeah, I guess we could move forward and maybe it'll come back at a later date with grant opportunities or funding opportunities, and maybe there'll be a change of plan once we reassess the situation a little more.
And we can get some costing for council to consider a new facility at budget time as well.
That's part of Goulart.
Thank you. Oh, go see if I can.
Just knowing this, like, now that the club gets this information, they could say, you know, okay, we'd like to maybe explore a field or the Hall and Verner. So they could come back with something.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Moving along there, it's 9 PM. We're at our fourth item for community services, basketball courts in Cache Bay. I'll move that along to Conseil St. Louis as it was a request item. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So actually, this is kind of a great segue into what I am looking at. So obviously, over the past couple of weeks, I've driven around and I went to River Valley and they have their beautiful rink and they have the parks and they have basketball courts not far beside. Field has the same, they have the beautiful rink, they have the roof and they have tennis courts and basketball court attached to it. And Cache Bay with the new rinks, what we have done, we went from a 9-month asset to probably a 3-month asset. So what I'm asking is to create or to build a new basketball court beside the, or to look at if the possibility is there to create a pad to build a basketball court to provide that same asset that Cache Bay had. Councillor Gagne made a comment earlier today that there's only so many basketball courts that to go around, and I don't disagree. However, at the end of the day, individuals, young children from Cache Bay don't have access to drive to River Valley or to Field or even to Sturgeon in the summer months if their parents are working and whatnot. So I'm looking for staff to at least provide us information on what the cost would be on creating a new basketball court, which could in turn be only turned into a pickleball court, and individuals would only have to drive 3 kilometers as opposed to 20 if they're not happy driving to the field. They're more than welcome to come to Cache Bay, and the hydro is already there, obviously, with the rink being built. There is the little hut there to change and all that, so it's something that I think we as a council need to look into just to give back an asset that we've taken away to the residents of Cache Bay.
thank you. And I'll open up the floor to some questions and comments. Councilor Russell.
No. Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess it's going to be a budget issue to bring back, but I support at least getting a costing for it to see what it would cost to get that going or back again. If that's a request, I support the request. And then come back in the fall and have some discussion around it.
Thank you, Councilor Gagne.
Thank you. Is the current pavement at the Cache Bay outdoor rink still in decent shape to be used as a section of a basketball court?
Define decent.
Was used last year to play basketball?
Yeah.
Is it still good? Can we keep a section of it and just move the rink a bit?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, that's one of the issues we're dealing with now. This is an afterthought after we've awarded a contract that is very specific to a scope of work that's been agreed to on behalf of the contractor and ourselves. So now if we look at changing that scope, then it's going to delay the project, and it could change the cost associated to it, because then we're relocating to save a section of asphalt. Now we're relocating how the rink in itself. So we're moving everything. So there's geotechnical that needs to happen. So we need to kind of test the soil to make sure there's proper drainage so that we're not relocating the rink on a section of proper. And then we'd have to look at the survey so we're not too close to the road, or are we moving the other way? So there's work to be done. So I think we're by doing that, we could potentially lose our construction season to get the rinks ready for this coming winter. Everything's doable. If council directs us to do that, we will. To save a section of asphalt that's currently there means the rink is not going to be built where we said it was going to be built. So how much more material do we need to bring to build a gravel pad to build the other rink is all something we'd have to go back, not to the start But there'd be a lot of discussions that would need to be had.
It's cleaner to look at costing out a basketball facility.
Totally separate.
It's just from a legal perspective, from a procurement perspective, all of it. I think if there's a request made to look at providing basketball in a multi-use court in the Cache Bay area and what that would cost to put the appropriate base and pavement on a square, I think that would be a cleaner thing to get back to you with a cost.
Thank you. Tessie.
Yeah, I support to get the survey specification costs. The Cache Bay community are great fundraisers, so I think once the costs are out, it would be great support from the community to help out with the cost.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess the request is to have costing. I know sounds like there's going to be lots of costing looked into for Mr. Play and his team. But at the same time, I think it could help with that Goulart Park redevelopment. If we get the cost for there, we may kind of already have a cost for the Goulart Park redevelopment if we wish to move forward with the basketball court there as well. So as mentioned by Councillor St. Louis, I think there's a bit of segues here that worked out well with all these discussions. But by a show of hands, do people agree with the direct staff to receive costing for such a project? Approved. So we'll move on to our final item, the preservation of historical archives, which was brought forward by Madam Mayor. I'll pass it over to you, Madam.
Thank you very much. I've been in contact with both the English and French historical societies since the beginning of the term. They've expressed some frustration in access to archives in a way that is convenient for their members, but also kind of all in one place. And I don't know whether some of the frustration came from some difficulties with access that cropped up during the pandemic and then just kind of snowballed. But I've met with a few of their members a few times, and they're really looking to seek us find a solution for a place that would combine both a collective storage space for historical archival materials, and also a place that would allow access for their members to conduct their historical research and a place for them to do their the work that they enjoy. Attached to the agenda request is a letter sent in collaboration between the two historical societies with the specifics of their request. So I I've put it before council just to kind of get an idea from staff what is the current situation with access to the archives and the cooperation with the two historical societies, and to see if there is any ideas from council that would help these groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Klein, would you have anything to add?
I do. For council's information, currently the archives that are in our care and control are housed at the museum. My understanding is in past discussions with certain members of the Historical Society that the library, the West Nipissing Public Library have archives as well, but it's theirs. They're not like, they've been donated to the library. They house them, they manage them. They're not part of our collection. Our collection is housed at the museum. And I've discussed this with staff that do work at the museum, and I was advised that all requests that have been submitted to museum staff in 2024 have been granted. No one's been denied access to those archives. Archives have to be preserved and managed to ensure that they're protected in the sense that they don't disappear. So we will be bringing forth to council a policy on management of archives. It's a common policy at any museum or any establishment where you house and protect archives. There's everything from climate control to controlled access to supervision while somebody's in that room. We just can't give free access to anyone to go in and say, I want to do research on my family tree, and then all of a sudden important archives, historical pieces disappear and leave. So we have a current process. We think it works well. You have to call, make an appointment. It's got to be based on staff availability because it's housed at the museum. And then you come in and you are supervised by municipal staff to ensure that the archives are looked after, they're well handled, and they're put back in the order that they were taken in. So you sign in, you sign out. We don't let anyone take any archives out of our archives rooms. We do allow for photocopying and such, but archives is a corporate responsibility to protect. And our staff have told me that every request that have been made this year, yes, we did have some issues during COVID. The museum wasn't operational, so we were cautious in that manner. But to my knowledge, every request that's been requested in 2024 has been granted. So to the other point mentioned, Madam Mayor, I know that some members of the Historical Society are asking that we consolidate and house all of the archives that either are municipally controlled in with the libraries in one location. We can have those discussions with the library to see if there's rationale behind that. And there's also been requests to have the archives housed elsewhere than at the museum. Some feel the museum's too far to go to. It's inconvenient. I know someone suggested let's house them at the information center. The issue of managing and protecting those archives still doesn't go away. And right now we've got a room for those archives at the museum, and to relocate them to a different venue where we don't have staff is going to be problematic. Right now, I think the museum, to be honest, as a staff recommendation, is the best place to house our archives right now. And that's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn, for that information. I'll open up the floor to any comments or questions for staff. We'll see if that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Does anyone know who are the other organizations other than the historical societies that the memo or the letter from development mentions other organizations?
I believe there's I spoke with one of the ones who wrote the letter. I believe there's a Club Richelieu, something along those lines, or there were quite a few that were mentioned, listed off very quickly. Some are being housed in someone's home, I believe, and he's moving out, so there's a concern as to where those will go. That's kind of what's referenced in the letter. But in terms of all the organizations, I'd have to follow up with, I believe, Madame Pilon.
Are these all paper archives that we're talking about? Strictly paper?
Yep. Strictly paper. We might have some digital archives as well. I know that volunteers have worked hard at digitizing our catalog, and so there's been countless hours put in there, but most are paper archives, yes.
The reason I asked the question, why don't we just put them all digital?
We could essentially do that. That is one option we could look at, and there's a significant cost to it, but we can bring that information to council. There are companies that do digitize archives and that house them in the cloud, and people can access them at any point. We can do
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. I'm sure that there must be grant available through the historical association of whatever's over 100 years old. That could be access to help us pay for that kind of thing. So my suggestion would be maybe to work with these people to see if there is any grant money available to kind of help us out to digitize this, which they would be available 100% of the time, 24/7.
And through you, Mr. Chair, just my final comment is our museum is a member of the Canadian Museum Association, and it's a member of the Ontario Museum Association. We will follow up with those associations to determine. I'm sure we're not the first or the last museum to digitize their archives. We'll definitely get that done, and we can come back again with another cost for council to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good question, great answer. I saw Councillor Nicol with her hand.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Just for information purposes, the CEO of the library board reached out to, I believe, a couple universities and colleges to see if any of their students would be interested in digitizing their archives. Nobody took the offer, but it's out there, and if any student ever takes that position on, that could be an option as well. So just so you're all aware of that.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question, talking about digitizing or digitizing. Is that, and I appreciate staff's costing this out, is that something that is going to be municipalities' responsibility for all of these organizations, or are there certain ones that are, but certain that if they want to digitize their archives, that would rest on their wallet?
We would do ours. We have, archives are generally donated from organizations, from individuals. So we would do our catalog. We'll definitely have those discussions with the library to see if there's a willingness to do it from the library side. But people that have private collections or private archives at home, we certainly, unless they're willing to sign them over to the municipality, there's a full process to follow with that as well. But if not, if they're not in our care and control, I would recommend that we only stick to digitizing our inventory.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are the archives currently housed in the upstairs room on the right-hand side?
At the
And
museum?
there's 2 rooms up there, correct? It's one long, is it just one long room or is it 2?
There's a boardroom and then there's a storage room for archives.
The archives are in a separate storage room from the boardroom. The
Yes.
boardroom's quite large.
Yeah.
So every time a member from either one of the historical society wants to go in, they call the museum to make an appointment. I'm going to come Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And then one of the museum staff actually stays in the room while they're doing the work.
That's recommended, yes.
Is there, that seems pretty staff intensive for what's going on there. Is there not a possibility of just installing cameras within the researching room?
We could potentially do that as an option, but if we digitize our catalog, then that goes away.
Depending on what the cost is of that. I'm just thinking,
'Cause
as well, the members of the Historical Society, I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to speak to them, but they're very passionate about the work that they do. And their offer to have volunteers to supervise, I personally wouldn't be uncomfortable with a member of the group after having spoken with them, that they understand the importance of proper handling of these archives. These are people who value and treasure the information. This is why they're coming to us. And so, I'm just looking for, I'd like to have ways to make it a little bit more easier. Look for ways to say yes instead of reasons to say no. And so, knowing the importance that they place on the materials that they're handling, when you talk about the preservation of the archives and careful handling and, protecting against theft, I'd be quite comfortable to work with those groups to come up with a solution that, uses some of their volunteer hours and passion to bring forward, to make a better opportunity of.
Well, I think that there's digitization, but I also think that some point that might be lost where we could look at how we can formally make a connection. Right now, I think the point that's being made is there is no, though they're well-meaning, the assets are ours, and we have a duty of care. And so we have to look at those kind of things. I think in a policy that comes forward, we can have a look at that and then have a logical framework and policy that council has approved that may include how to recognize certain individuals if they've done the following things, but I don't know how that would look, but I think that we need to bring something back for council to formalize the handling of archives.
Thank you. Yeah, to add to, I would be a little weary of allowing volunteers, just like, I understand they really care about it as well, but there's a reason why, you know, it's mentioned that not accessible, so then if we allow anybody in there without, like, we are the safekeepers of these archives because they are the archives of the municipality. If someone decides at one point that they'd rather take a bid and, you know, bring them elsewhere, I believe it's just nice to have that security, but I would really be on board with looking at those options to digitize. That's the way the world's moving. I know there are some grants out there, funding opportunities, maybe not for this specific project, but it'd be nice to see happen. And then the other thing of adding lots of archives in an upstairs room, I'm not sure. I'd like to find out as well if we would go that way, if that structure has been designed for that. Because I know at a workplace of mine, they had all the files on an upper floor. And by the time we put a few too many files in there, it was noticed that the structure, the integrity of the structure had been compromised. So that's something to take a look at as well. As you're adding files, that's a lot of dead weight on a floor that may not have been designed for that. So then they had to create a new facility down on a concrete slab with proper ventilation and everything. So that there is some things to consider when looking at the cost of digitizing. There may also be a large cost just housing these physical files as well. But I do believe when you digitize, you still keep the physical files. So I think that's a problem that we may have to look at no matter what, just something to keep in mind. So, anybody, so what would we be looking at here for this one? Mr. Parvo, would you have any ideas?
Well, I think my recommendation would be to come back with more formal, there are a lot of moving parts. What's involved in archiving? What are the proper handling procedures? What are the best practices? And I think that the staff should come back in due course with a more comprehensive policy for council to consider. At the same time, being directed to consider options for what the scope of work and cost would be for digitizing the archives at the same time. So I think, you know, we get a cost analysis, but also we need to start setting policy and work within a policy framework. And I think that that's council's role to set policy. And so I think staff needs to bring that back, and Mr. Fuller's indicated that they're planning on bringing that back. So I think this will probably, you know, light a fire and wrong use. Wrong analogy for archives, I suppose. But this will provide an impetus for Mr. Poullain to get staff to develop a draft sooner than later.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll pass it back over to Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to mention that for the meeting, I was asked, I guess, because she was trying to see if I could check. Okay.
Okay, so next on the agenda is our Environmental Services Committee. We do have one item. Councillor Nicol is the chair of that committee, but given her Zoom presence this evening, she has kindly asked if the other council member for that committee would share this portion. So I will pass the floor back to Councillor Rivard.
Thank you. So I'll pass it over to Ms. Henning regarding rural landfill concerns.
So we're not looking for any sort of resolution, or this is just for your information this evening. At our rural landfills, we have had in the past 4 years, I mean, I think we've probably seen an uptick in, you know, crime everywhere, but we've seen a lot of instances happening at our rural landfills, a lot of theft, vandalism, stolen cameras. We had a porta potty stolen. These costs are adding up for the municipality. We really don't have, you know, they're limited hours. We don't have staff there often. They're remote locations. So we just wanted to make council aware that some of these things are happening at these sites.
Thank you. Before opening up the floor, I also like to add that we had the meeting last night, and it seemed like there was some visible frustration from staff as well with dealing with these issues, right? So that's why it was coming forward. It's a bigger problem than I would have imagined until hearing the stories. So I'll open up the floor to questions or comments. Dr. Conseil Saint-Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. So I noticed that the police have been contacted. Have we ever been, or have they ever been successful in getting anyone?
We don't have outcomes when we contact the police, so we're not sure.
Thank you. Conseil Gagné.
Do we have cameras in those locations?
There was some, so we, at the Sturgeon Falls site, yes, because we have hydro and internet there and we have cameras. At the other sites, we did try to install some game cams there. Unfortunately, they were stolen. Then they put them up, tried to put them up higher. However, because they were so high and there's no lights there at night, all you could see was, headlights coming in. You couldn't actually see any people or activity happening. So there wasn't really a good way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I should also mention that the cost, the $15,000 cost, that doesn't include staff, our staff resources to go out and change these things.
I would just add that, Ms. Henning has taken over for the last 6 months, but it is almost a weekly occurrence. It's not great, and we did make some changes, which is eliminated some of the because we used to collect what do you call TVs or whatever
the electronic
recycling at all sites, and we're trying to be customer friendly that way. Now we've consolidated that to, I don't want to say where, I'm afraid, given the fact that we're talking about this, but to one site, and it seems to have assisted a little bit with respect to that. Having said that, Kipling landfill a few weeks ago was just ransacked again, and so it's just it's an interesting phenomenon, and we're looking at doing what we can to address it. And at a certain point in time, we'll be looking at how we manage solid waste in all of our outlying areas, because, as you saw in your operational review, this is just for information. It's not for decision-making purposes, but, going to having residents go to the tipping face, has been deemed as problematic as one of the observations from KPMG. I was at the landfill this past week, and a guy was in the tipping face and scavenging 20 feet in. And he was in an area, and so our landfill operator went and got him out, but it's just, you could not believe what's happening. I guess it's the economy and people, whatever, but I think that it's getting, I've never seen it in all my years. The progression in the last 3 years has just been untenable.
Thank you. I had something to say, but I forget now, so we'll just, if nobody has any more questions or comments, we'll move forward. I'll pass the chair back.
Thank you very much. We are starting to run short on time, so I'm going to start going through the portion of our regular meeting. We will likely have to stop to take a motion to extend our curfew, which is a 2/3 majority needed to do so. Or is it just regular? Simple. Okay, thank you. So item 6, moving into our regular meeting, is our consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Restoul. Be it resolved that the consent agenda for the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held on June the 18th, 2024 be approved as presented.
Okay, questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Next, we move on to 6.2 planning.
It is moved by Councillor Restoul and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-47, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement with Stevens Wiki, subdivision file number SUBD 2019-03 with the municipality of West Nipissing, shall come into force and take effect on the date as passed.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-48, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement with Georges and Marie Ferrand, subdivision file number 2018-01 with the municipality of West Nipissing shall come into force and take effect on the date as passed.
Question, Councillor
I
Restoul?
just had a question for procedure, nothing wrong with it, but if Councillor Ferran has declared a conflict, should he not be moving or seconding?
Can I get a seconder on that resolution, please? Councillor Rest, I didn't even notice.
Thank you. Councillor Rivard. Is that?
Councillor Vestal.
Okay, thank you. Moved by, okay, and Bristol. Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, 6.2.4 as per was removed from the agenda.
Nope.
Oh, sorry, Browns Island, 6.2.3.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-49, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement with Renee and Rachel Bertrand, subdivision file 2023-01 with the municipality of West Nipissing shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay. Questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, 6.2.4 has been removed. Move on to new business. Clerk?
It's moved by Councillor Ferrand, seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Whereas at a meeting held on June the 4th, 2024, Council for the West Nipissing Municipality reviewed a tax collection policy. Be it therefore resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality approves the tax collection policy as presented, which policy shall come into force and take effect on the date it is passed. And be it further resolved that the tax collection policy shall form part of the West Nipissing Policy Manual.
Much discussed at the committee of the whole last week. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that Councillor Georges Ferrand be appointed to the following board, the Centre Communautaire de la Vigne.
Okay, comments? All those in favor, please? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality declares the Vernon Ram Rodeo to be held on September the 7th, 8th, 2024 at 141 Millrand Road in Verner, hosted by Caroline Lafrenière, to be a municipally significant event.
Thank you. I do have one question for staff on this, if I may, Mr. Repo. Is there any, what's the,
It's for LCBO, for LCBO.
okay, and there's no other kind of, doesn't tie us into anything financially or otherwise, any kind of support? Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried?
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that Council authorizes the following exemptions from the West Nipissing Noise Bylaw 1999-75 for the following requesters and the specified dates and location. Number 1, Mr. Joe Wellna for Waterpalooza on Saturday, August 2nd from 12 p.m. until... There's something wrong there. I'll fix the dates. Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
I have to just check the letter. Excuse me.
August long.
That's not one.
Time doesn't
But
make
his
sense.
time doesn't make sense because it's not after 11 p.m.
It says 12 to 7.
I think the times are right, Madam Clerk.
Says until midnight.
It says 1,900 hours. Yeah.
I think it's because it's gonna be loud.
Okay, well, still within the hours that they can, don't need it, but we'll do it anyway. From Saturday, August 2nd, 2024, from noon until 7 p.m. And to Jasmine Goulard for an outdoor family event, which will take place at 191 3rd Street in Sturgeon Falls on Saturday, July the 6th, from 5 p.m. until 1 a.m.
Okay, questions or comments? Yes.
I just noticed, thank you through, Jasmine Goulard requested till midnight, so someone could reach out there and let her know she's gonna be allowed for an extra hour or so. They can party a little longer.
We told her on the phone that they could bring the one if they wanted to.
Same comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? All those in favor? Okay, it is officially 9:30, which is our curfew. I would need a mover and a seconder to extend. Councillor St. Louis, Councillor Ferrin.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrin. At approximately 9:30 p.m., a motion was tabled to extend the meeting beyond the regular curfew in order to proceed with the agenda.
Questions, comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, 6.5.5.
It's moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby waives all fees for the use of the West Nipissing Community Centre Arena in Sturgeon Falls as requested by the Studio Project Arts Collective in order to host their Future in Safe Hands 2024 festival to be held on Friday, July 26th to Sunday, July 28th.
Okay, questions or comments? Councillor Gagne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does this group fall under the bylaw of freehold usage bylaw? And the other thing, I tried to do some research to find this group, and there's a group associated in Chicago that's carrying this name, but I couldn't find anything official in regards to this group in the Nipissing area related with Nipissing First Nation. So I'm not convinced that it's a legit, I'm not saying they're not a legit group, but I don't think they're a non-profit registered and so on, but I just.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have limited information. This came in very recently, and because of the timing, we bring it to council, and they provided a more elaborate overview of their events and the benefit to the community. They did check off that they are a not-for-profit, so we go by what the organizations have submitted, but they're not known to us. This is the first time they've actually requested use of our hall.
Anybody else with a question or comment? Councillor Resto.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do know a couple of the folks here, and they are from Nipissing First Nation, where I've done work with them through my workplace. It doesn't answer the question about if they're registered or not, but I know a couple of folks. Yeah.
Just follow-up question, can we check just to make sure? Because if not, we're not following the bylaw. So we're creating a precedent, and technically we could have to allow any users, so.
When's the event?
July 26th to 28th. So the request from Councillor Gagne, and I tend to agree, is I'm happy to support the resolution on the condition that staff confirms, in some kind of paper format that they are actually registered nonprofit.
So can I just add to that, because the policy is so new, is that a requirement moving forward that they show us proof of registered not-for-profit before we bring this to council? They have to be a registered not-for-profit with a Canada Revenue Agency number, correct?
So in the new policy, the amount of documentation they provide is based on the level of funding they receive, but then I would expect proof of the very basics of being a registered not-for-profit. I would expect that they would provide the basic proof.
Yeah. We can confirm that before.
Would you like to propose that?
Yeah, I'd like to propose an
So
amendment.
Councillor Gagne is proposing an amendment that approval is conditional on proof of not-for-profit status. Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor. I need a seconder for the amendment, please. Councillor St. Louis.
Okay, there's an amendment on the floor. It's moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor St. Louis that an amendment to the resolution said shall be that the approval is conditional upon proof of not-for-profit status being provided.
So the resolution's on the floor. If you have a question or comment specifically about the amendment to the resolution, yes?
Yes, thank you,
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
Ferrer.
I just was, are we talking about not-for-profit or charity status? Because they're
Not-for-profit.
two different things. CRA is charity, not-for-profit has to do with the province of Ontario. So it's a business registration in Ontario.
Yeah.
CRA is charity.
I think the policy is not for profit. It doesn't have to be charitable. It can
No,
be
but
not
they would,
for
have-
profit.
then you provide your, your, not your financials, your corporate.
Yeah.
Papers, yeah.
Does that answer your question, Jess? Okay, thank you. So the amendment's on the floor. Are there questions or comments in relation to the amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Carried. So we're back to the original resolution to grant support in the form of a hall fee waiver. Questions or comments, Councillor?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Something that I find peculiar and I don't really appreciate when looking at these things is how the fee for the venue is the only thing missing from the revenues. I don't feel like we've been provided, like, I get it that could happen, but I just feel like it's a little odd, right? So it's 22,900 for the event as a whole, but they have revenues of 19,500 and what they're requesting is the perfect 3,400, right? So to me, it's just a little peculiar, and I just thought I'd mention that because I personally don't appreciate stuff like that if it isn't truthful, but I'm not here to say that somebody's lying. I just wanted to point it out. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Rivar, whereas Council received a request from Enbridge Gas seeking the temporary closure of Smiley Road in order to complete the installation of a new gas line. Be it resolved that Council authorizes the temporary closure of Smiley Road for approximately 6 weeks in order to permit Enbridge Gas to complete a horizontal drilling project for a new gas line, and be it further resolved that Enbridge Gas take the necessary steps to inform the general public and emergency services of the proposed closure of Smiley Road.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we do have 2 items on the agenda for this evening.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved with bylaw number 2024-50, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing, to authorize the execution of a municipal funding agreement with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario regarding the Canada Community Building Fund shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Can you give an overview of what this is for?
Mayor, I think this was Mr. Boulay indicated that the North Bay Chamber of Commerce is seeking.
No.
Sorry?
No, I.
Oh, municipal funding agreement, oh, sorry. Canada Community Building
AMO,
Fund.
yes.
It's gas tax.
What's that? It's gas tax.
It's gas tax. They renamed it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Jumping ahead.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that Council for the Municipality of West Nipissing authorizes the Mayor to sign a letter of support for the North Barron Area Rural Community Immigration Pilot Expression of Interest application as attached.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. I actually had a mayor's report prepared for this evening. We're running really late this evening. I will say that we are in the middle of a heat wave. Our municipal facility is set to open and there's updates on the response plan online. I encourage people to go take a look at it. There are facilities open for our residents, everybody to support friends, families, and neighbors, make sure everybody stays safe. Another big notice that came out today is the water levels on the upper Sturgeon River will be going down by 8 to 10 inches over the next couple of weeks to facilitate repairs on our hydro dam. This will be during daytime hours only. Water levels will raise back up in the evening, but just so residents along there are aware and users of our beach, etc. We have our both primary school and high school graduations coming up in the next couple of weeks. Both myself and other members of council will be in the various schools to support them and celebrate with our graduates. The brand relaunch for the youth space at the community health center is happening on Thursday along with our economic development, Wednesday, along with our economic development meeting. This weekend, we have the Sturgeon Falls Market downtown on King Street, 10 to 3. We have Doki's First Nation annual traditional powwow happening on June 22nd, June 23rd, which I'm very much looking forward to participate in the opening processional. And the Club Richelieu will be celebrating their 75th anniversary with a dinner on Saturday night. Just down the road, but before our next meeting on June 30th, Vive Living, La Visitation, Parc La Visitation will be having its grand opening as part of Canada Day weekend. We're very much looking forward to that. And with that, we have a resolution to go into closed section, please.
It is moved by Councillor Gagnon and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that we proceed into closed meeting as authorized in Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. Discuss the following: the security of the property of the municipality or local board, proposed or pending acquisition of or disposition of municipality by the municipality regarding 35 Front Street.
Okay, questions, comments? All in favor? Carried.